All right, here we go. Drive time on a Monday afternoon. It is a little cooler this week than it was last week, but, it was 60 degrees over the weekend. Going to have some rain in the forecast pretty much all week. It's about 44 degrees and a little cloudy, a little rainy, a little stormy here in downtown Salt Lake City, Utah on this Monday afternoon. And as it is every single day, it's good to have you along for the ride. Spence Checketts behind the mic. Porter Larson producing the program today behind the glass. Good guest list to talk about the final football game for about 7 months or so. About 200 days and change until you're going to see actual football on the field again. But spring football will be here before you know it for you college football fans. And obviously, it's never too early to look ahead to what we might see coming up next season. But the topic today is the Seattle Seahawks are your Super Bowl 60 champ. Second Super Bowl in Seattle's history, beating the New England Patriots handily, quite frankly, 29-13. And when we look back, as we always do, and in 10 years, if we're still doing sports talk radio, if it's still a thing, and we ask the question, what was the most unmemorable Super Bowl of your adult lifetime? This one might come to mind. It was not pretty to watch. Brain-dead people arguing about halftime shows was the most entertaining portion of the evening. Cool Sam Darnold redemption story, and the Seattle Seahawks might be good for quite some time, quite frankly. Sam is under contract for 2 more years, a very team-friendly deal. They have the 6th most cap space in the NFL, and their head coach is 38 years old. So if you're a Seattle Seahawks fan, it might be a good little run for your team. And tip of the cap to Mike Vrabel after winning 4 games a year ago. The New England Patriots back in the Super Bowl, but they could not get it done. So we'll talk a lot about the Super Bowl. We'll talk a lot of pro football. We'll kind of react to what we saw yesterday and get into it from every different angle and give you a little peek ahead to what the landscape of pro football might look like next season. All 10 head coaching vacancies have been filled. And we're going to blink, and the NFL draft will be here, of course. That's always topical. It's not the only thing that's going on. We saw the debut of Jaren Jackson Jr. for the Utah Jazz, and it looked really good until he was informed that his right ankle may look a little funky. And so maybe it's time to take a seat on the bench for the 4th quarter, even though we have the lead and we have a chance to win against the Orlando Magic. And Jaren Jackson Jr. looked to his left, and Lauri Markkanen was sitting next to him. And then there was Yusuf Nurkic. They were all on the bench, but the Jazz were ahead. I wonder why you elect to lean into a little Isaiah Collier action. I wonder why you elect to lean into a little John Conchar, a little Kyle Filipowski. Cody Williams needs more minutes in the 4th quarter. He has to grow, right, guys? We know the deal. As I said last week, for anybody that was concerned that the Utah Jazz are now too good to hold on to their draft asset, well, Will Hardy and the front office are going to make sure that they hold on to it. They're going to be in Miami tonight, and I can't wait to see how Cody Williams and Vince Williams Jr. are able to kind of play off each other in the 4th quarter if the Jazz have a little bit of a lead. But NBA basketball, of course, the playoffs are always awesome. So NBA playoffs not too far away, and we're only 5 weeks away from Selection Sunday in the world of college basketball. Your boy was in Provo on Saturday night. No big deal. Went down and caught a little BYU Houston. Old man was in town. Went down with my brother and his son, and Kevin Young is now the first coach in college basketball to have Kelvin Sampson run circles around him. Kelvin Sampson's a Hall of Famer, but, man, they were outcoached. And I don't know that team is a team that we can expect to do much in the tournament. They're trending towards maybe a 6 or a 7 seed. And with the investment they made into talent down in Provo, they go to the NCAA tournament as a 6 or a 7 seed and win 1 game. That's not good enough. Now, on the other side, Utah basketball tried hard? Question mark against Kansas? I don't know. 5 straight L's for the Utes. Man, you look up and down the schedule, and you wonder where the next win's going to come from. Kansas, of course, is really good, and Keanu Dawes had a good game, but it has been rough sledding for Alex Jensen. 5 straight L's, 9 of their last 10. Going to take on Houston, the team that beat BYU on Saturday, and I think they're a top 4 or 5 team in the country. They're really good. They've got a couple pros. Their freshman guard's going to be a top 5 pick. And then it's on the road against Cincinnati and West Virginia, back home against UCF and Iowa State. So it's tough, man. They do not have the horses. They're getting smoked pretty much night in and night out. So the latest in the landscape of college basketball as well. So a little NFL, a little Super Bowl, a little Jazz basketball, some college basketball in the program today on a Monday afternoon to get that work week started out the right way. All right. First guest today will be Zach Moss. Our buddy Zach Moss, live in studio, one of the best to ever do it at the U, one of those 2019 kids that we talk about all the time from that great Utah football team. How about another pro running back, Robert Turbin, a Super Bowl winning quarterback? Lily Shimbashi from Sports-ish. Once upon a time, we had Lily on when she was just starting, and now she's a star. And it's hard to actually even schedule her today. Sean Syed, Sumer Sports, one of our favorites to break it down. So Zach Moss, Robert Turbin, Lily Shimbashi, Sean Syed, me, Spence Checketts, all of you, the great listeners, that guy, Porter Larson. What's not to love about the Super Bowl? But I think it's safe to say I always watch these games through the prism. Like if you're watching with somebody who has never seen what they're seeing for the first time, and you're like, yeah, this is the biggest American sporting event all year long, I think after the game, they'd be like, all right. Right. The entertainment appeal, if I had to give it a letter grade, I would say yesterday was probably a D.
Yeah, and I'm always one who, if there's good defense being played and the scoring is low, like I'll be fine with that. However, if it's just like not great football, which we saw, I'll put the most of the blame here on Drake May. He just wasn't as good as he's been throughout the majority of the season. In fact, he had a kind of a rough postseason in general, and the Patriots got to the Super Bowl in spite of that. And it just made for a really non-competitive game where the Seahawks kicked a bunch of field goals, and it felt like the game was decided at halftime. Now, got some points put up at the end of the game, made the score look a little bit different, but yeah, it wasn't a very clean football game, and that doesn't make for great entertainment value, although the show of the Super Bowl was, as it usually is, a big spectacle, a big event. I guess that's mostly what the NFL's doing on Super Bowl Sunday, is trying to show for the broader audience, not just the football diehards.
Yeah, so had some friends over, enjoyed the day, tried to just have a good time in spite of a pretty bad product on the field. But let's get into it. Our first guest today will be Zach Moss, live in studio. But before Zach stops by, courtesy of our good friends at Prize Picks, it's time now for your opening tip.
Welcome to The Drive with Spence Checketts on Utah's #1 sports talk. Now into the studios of ESPN 700 to set the scene for the show. The opening tip of The Drive is brought to you by Prize Picks. Use the code ESPN700 with Prize Picks.
Shoot your shot on Prize Picks to get $50 instantly in lineups when you play your first $5. That's right. Prize Picks is now giving you $50 in lineups when you sign up to play your first $5. Prize Picks makes every dunk, every dime, and every board that much more exciting. So don't miss the chance to get started on America's #1 app for sports picks. Prize Picks is available in Utah. Downloaded the app, been playing ever since. Pick more or less on Lowry Marketing, Keontae George every week. So make sure to check it. Prize Picks is available is available in your state. So check it out. New feature alert: Prize Picks now has early payouts. If your player gets off to a hot start, you now have the option to cash out those winnings before the game even finishes. Bottom line: download the Prize Picks app today. Use the promo code ESPN700 to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Promo code ESPN700 to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup, because on Prize Picks, it's good to be right. All right, the last football game for about 7 months, Super Bowl 60 yesterday in Santa Clara. The Seattle Seahawks are your champ. Second ring for Seattle. And when you look at the landscape of what they have in front of them right now, their roster, some of their salary stuff, the money tied up, there's a good chance Seattle's going to have something to say about this for a long, long time. Now, ultimately, Sam Darnold is under contract for 2 more years. It's a pretty team-friendly deal. We forget Sam's only 28 because it seems like with 5 different teams now, Seattle being the 5th team he's played for, it seems like he's been around for like 20 years, but he's only 28 years old. He becomes just the 4th quarterback since 1990 to win a Super Bowl with 0 turnovers in the playoffs. Troy Aikman, Drew Brees, Drew Brees, and the other one is slipping my mind. But Sam became the 4th quarterback since 1990 to win a Super Bowl while not turning the ball over once. Oh, it's Steve Young, our very own Steve Young, BYU Steve Young. So 4 quarterbacks, 1990, Super Bowl winners, 0 turnovers. Troy Aikman, Steve Young, Drew Brees, and now Sam Darnold. The Seattle Seahawks became the first team to win a Super Bowl while having 0 turnovers all playoff long. And ultimately, even though the Sam redemption arc is probably my favorite story of what Seattle just did, and Kenneth Walker Jr., or excuse me, Kenneth Walker III, with 160 total yards as your MVP, this was about that Seattle defense. And I thought you could make a case for Devin Witherspoon as the MVP of the game. But ultimately, it did go to Kenneth Walker Jr., and Seattle's the winner. And a lot of the questions about whether or not New England had a good offense were answered. Now, they just played 5 of the top 6 defenses in the NFL, but a lot of smart football people saw a lot of holes in their offense prior to the Super Bowl, whether or not they played good defenses or not. And the offensive line could not hold up. A lot of criticism on Drake May, and he wasn't good, but he had no time. So we'll continue to break this down. But Porter, as you know, I'm a big music fan. You know this, right? You know that I'm a big fan of music.
Kid Rock, too.
No, oftentimes I go to lyrical explanations for things that I don't have the words for. So before we catch a break, I offer this. Ba with the ba, da bang, da bang, diggy, diggy, said the boogie, up jumped the boogie. I think that really encapsulates my feelings on the game. Ba with the ba, da bang, diggy, diggy, said the boogie, up jumped the boogie.
Yeah.
I mean, lyrical genius. I was going to say we did have a chance to see a generational talent yesterday, but it wasn't a football player on the field. It was definitely Kid Rock during halftime.
I will say, and this has absolutely zero to do with like what I think is a silly culture war we play every year at the halftime show. Kid Rock's just not good.
He's never been good.
No, it's not fun. It's not good music. And also he didn't perform yesterday. If you guys noticed, he held the mic up while a radio studio version of his song played, and he sometimes sung along with it.
I just want to say this, and this is for the questions that don't have any answers, the midnight glancers and the topless dancers, the gander freaks, cars packed with speakers, the G's with 40s, and the chicks with beepers. All right, there we go.
I love it. I love it. It explains everything to a T.
A real lyric. Ba with the ba, da bang, diggy, diggy. Diggy said the boogie, said up, jump the boogie. Congratulations to the Seattle Seahawks. Zach Moss is live in studio, coming up next on ESPN 700. All right, we say goodbye to football for about 7 months or so as far as the on-field product, and the Seattle Seahawks are your Super Bowl 60 champions, dismantling New England. Game really wasn't that close. Didn't think it was all that entertaining, but our next guest would know better than I would. One of the best to ever do it at the U. We always talk about that 2019 team as potentially the best Utah football team on paper. And then longtime NFL guy, he's good enough to give us some time in studio. Zach Moss, one of our favorites. What's up, Zach?
What's up, my man? How you been?
I've been good. You watched that game yesterday?
I did. I did.
Okay, from my vantage point, it was like a D in entertainment. But, you're an NFL player. Did you watch it with any – I'll just ask you bottom line. Your takeaways, were you entertained watching that football game?
I wasn't entertained. And, I watched it last night, kind of like in and out of it, just because nothing was really catching you.
Right, yeah.
From the offensive standpoint.
Yeah.
And I'm an offensive guy, so I want to see that.
Right.
Especially in the big game, right?
Yeah.
And then I watched it again this morning, right, through the highlights of the situation, and I was like, yeah, this is boring.
Yeah.
It was just a boring game, but the saying is true. Defense wins championships, and from the beginning of these playoffs, we saw really, once Mahomes and Jackson and all these type of quarterbacks, Burrow even, once they didn't make the dance, right, you knew, okay, it's going to be great defensive teams that really run the ball and are just going to make and just limit turnovers.
Yeah.
Right? You're not going to have any of these gunslingers and, game changers from that position. And that's what we got. Like, we saw C.J. Stroud have a bad playoff. I mean, Drake May had a terrible playoff run. Justin Herbert didn't have much help. So you saw a lot of guys. Bo Nix got hurt. So, all these different teams, none of those guys are top 5 quarterback.
Right, yeah.
As of right now. So it's like it was all defense, and the Seahawks had the best defense pretty much almost all year.
Yeah.
In a lot of different categories. I personally thought the Broncos, if they had Bo Nix, would have gotten there. Now, I still think the Seahawks win it just because they had a tougher road through the NFC, and the Rams. Whoever won the Rams and the Seahawks game was pretty much my Super Bowl winner anyways.
Really? Yeah. You thought that was the Super Bowl? Well, you turned out to be right. And that game was pretty entertaining. Darnold actually, because he had to, because Stafford was so good, he really was able to do some damage through the air. But do you feel like, because you make some interesting points, and typically we do look at the Josh Allens, the Patrick Mahomes, the Joe Burrows or whatever, like the guys that can really sling it as the quarterbacks that are going to win Super Bowls. But do you think this is now a different blueprint? Look, defense has always been important. Like, lost in the whole Mahomes run is Kansas City always had a really good defense. Yeah. But with Darnold, with Drake May, to your point, maybe 0 of the top 5 quarterbacks as we think about them in the mix. Do you feel like we're going to see teams try to steal this model as far as maybe not paying a quarterback top shelf dollar and trying to surround him with just a great defense to get it done? Yeah,
I mean, the Seahawks were in a great spot because they only paying around $30 million a year versus having to shovel off another 25.
Right, yeah.
Right, so look at Trevor Lawrence, right? Just because he's your franchise quarterback, you have to pay that number.
Yeah.
Right, or do you ship him off and you start that whole process over again? So teams are pretty much handcuffed from that scenario. I don't see that changing just because the quarterback position is so meaningful to a team, right? You literally go as your quarterback goes. So from that standpoint, even look at Houston. CJ's coming up on a contract here at any point now, so that's going to be anywhere from $55+ million a year.
Yeah.
So you're going to gut the team in that great defense they have. A lot of those guys are on rookie contracts. So this is, for the last X amount of years, teams have tried to win when these guys are on these rookie deals. Again, Sam is pretty much on a rookie deal compared to some of these other dudes and what they've been able to do. So it's going to be hard. I love the motto of playing complete team football.
Sure, yeah.
Right? Once you are able to do that and you don't pay, right, I was in Cincinnati and we have 3 dudes that are really, really good, and you don't bat an eye on why do you have to pay these guys. You have to. The talent is crazy. But when you do that, then look at the other side of the ball. We struggled that year I was there defensively. They struggled last year defensively. Even though these guys are putting up the same numbers they would regardless if they were getting $25 million or $30 million a year, you have to do it. And once you do that, it makes it really, really hard when these guys are in their prime to really build a complete team. And the teams that do pay these quarterbacks a lot of that money, then it goes upstairs to the front office. how well can you draft?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
And then how well is your coaching staff? If you can't do that, then it's going to be real hard, and you're just going to be somewhere trying to fight every season to get into the playoffs, and if you get in, you're going to be knocked out pretty soon.
Yeah, and they've got Sam under contract for 2 more years with that team-friendly deal. I read this morning they're going to have the 6th most cap space in the NFL in the offseason. Mike McDonald's only 38.
Yeah, him getting out of Baltimore, I think that's where he came from.
Yeah.
Him getting out of Baltimore, I'm sure the Ravens would have hoped they would have moved on from Harbaugh a couple 2 years before. But they're so young. I mean, just watching those guys talk about their team, right, it was literally nothing about I, or anything of that nature. But just watching those guys, you know, a lot of those dudes you don't know, right? A lot of those dudes aren't flashy players and things of that nature and just known all around. But they just play a certain style, and you can tell they bought into every single thing that McDonald's spoken to them in the last 2 years he's been there, and he's really changed that whole thing around. So, I mean, like you said, they got the 6th most cap space. If I'm a player, right, I'm thinking of, okay, how can I get to Seattle?
Yeah.
Right, and go be in a culture like that, because, you know, that's what it's about. It's about the culture. They have a great culture. You can see it just the TV, just the way the guys are really playing for each other. And I think it was a couple weeks ago with Tariq Woolen on the sideline. These guys were going at it on the sideline, just holding each other accountable. Like, those are the type of things that you want to see, right? I've seen that when I was in Buffalo, when we were winning a lot of games and in the playoffs all the time. And then the teams that didn't make the playoffs with, we didn't see that, right? Like, the best teams hold each other accountable, the players, not the coaches.
Yeah, Zach Moss is with us, former Ute, and obviously played in the pros, most recently with Cincinnati. Here's how boring, Zach, the game was. At one point, I had buddies over to watch the game. At one point, we broke into a debate about whether or not a kicker could ever win MVP of a Super Bowl, because Jason Myers at one point was responsible for every single point.
Yeah.
And, you know, later on, I do want to talk to you about Kenneth Walker in a moment. I came to the conclusion that almost no matter what, you can't give the MVP of the Super Bowl to a kicker. I mean, even if it's – so he had all 5 field goals. Even if it was 15-0 Seattle, I feel like you'd look at, you know, the Witherspoon kid who had a couple of sacks, or Eman Warrior, or somebody on deep. I feel like there's just no scenario where a kicker can be the MVP of a Super Bowl.
Not a chance. It's just, no, I mean, that would be real bad.
Yeah.
That would be real bad.
It would be, yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty much a skill position award, right? Like, somebody has to do it, right? If you catch a pick 6, right, that pretty much puts you right at the front of the line if nobody on the offense is doing anything, right? So Kenneth Walker played his tail off, which was awesome, because I was like, how many yards does he have? Once I saw how many yards, okay, yeah, he's the MVP.
Yeah.
Because Sam played a good game outside of – he didn't really have to do much.
Yeah, he just didn't mess it up, right?
Don't mess this up.
Yeah.
Put him in a short field position to get a little energy. I mean, even their punter, Seahawks punter was on fire. Like, just pinning them down there every single time and making that team have to go that far down the field, and the second-year quarterback. Like, people forget Drake, even though Drake had an awesome year, right, and people talk about, you know, the strength of the schedule and things of that nature. Yes, that plays a part in it, absolutely, right? But still, at the end of the day, these guys are all professional players, and these coaches are all been around a lot of football for a long time. So you still got to go out and perform and go do it. But them literally putting him in those positions, like I said, it was a complete team game from the offense side of the ball. I think the Seahawks were the only team in this playoff run in Super Bowl, playoff history, not one turnover.
Yeah. Huge.
And we always talked about Sam turning the ball over.
Right.
Right. Fumbles happen, right, from the running backs, or, you know, even a strip sack. Like, we didn't see any of that. They just played perfect team ball. It goes back to my mind of just the team culture that they have. When Sam had a game where he had 4 picks and they still won it. And one of their linebackers, I think Ernest Jones, came up to the media and was like, we got his back, and if you don't like that, then, you know, explicitive. But, like, that right there told me everything I need to know about Sam is in a perfect spot to literally be him.
Yeah.
He's going to turn the ball over. Everybody does that, right? Like, Brady turned the ball over a lot. Brady didn't have a lot of great – you know, he had a lot of great playoff games, but he also had some duds in there.
Sure he did, yeah.
But that's why you play a team game, right? And that was awesome to see. It was boring, but it was awesome to see just a team be able to win in that style, in that fashion. And, I mean, they're a team to be reckoned with for a couple more years coming out of the NFC for sure.
So let's hone in on Kenneth Walker III for a moment. So 161 total yards, MVP as you referenced. But it's, obviously all of us here in Salt Lake under the University of Utah football ecosystem, we followed your career since you've left. And it's been interesting because you've also been part of timeshare backfields like Kenneth is typically with Zach Charbonnet. And then when another back has gotten hurt, you've been the benefactor. And when you've been like the feature back, you've actually been really, really good. But you also have been, and it's not a rare thing for a team to employ two running backs. Most teams do, unless you have like Derrick Henry or something like that. So when it comes to Kenneth Walker III, what did we learn about him with Zach Charbonnet out of the picture? All due respect to Zach, with Kenneth being the guy. Tell me what you saw.
Well, the thing is about the league, specifically being a running back, right? Like, they don't like to, even though Kenneth's the MVP and he played, had a great game, right? When he goes upstairs for a new contract, they're still going to hit him with the timeshare.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. They're still going to want to do that.
Right.
It's not going to go get – look at James Cook. James Cook had to fight tooth and nail, right? And he had a lot of timeshare, but not really outside of, actually running the ball, right? He was getting the bulk of every carry. So they're still going to do that, which tells me everything I need to know just how they treat the running back position in the NFL. It's like, okay, great. You play tail off, but – you play a dependent position. I tell people all the time, it's like, even though a running back is really good outside of, you have a guy like Saquon Barkley, even Saquon this year struggled because the offensive line in front of him really was banged up and they didn't play that well together this year. And a lot of that happens because you need everybody else to do their job too, so you can do your job and look really good. Kenneth was always a bell cow back. Like, look at him in college and coming out and things of that nature. When you're a running back and you get the bulk of the carries, 18, 20 carries, and instead of, all right, we got 25 carries for this game, and then you get 12, it's really hard to show what you can do in 12, right? Now, there's just some games where you might have 12 for 80. Sure, then there's a lot of those games where you're going to have 12 for 50, right? Because, again, you're playing against the best of the best, right? And in college, maybe you can get away with that, but in the league, that's really, really hard to get into a groove, kind of second guess yourself. You kind of start doing things that you wouldn't do when okay, I know I'm gonna get 13 more carries. You try to start making all these 12 carries feel like home run plays and then you get frustrated and pissed when it's like, oh man, it's a 2-yard run. But when you're the bell cow, you have anybody backing you up, and you get a 3-yard run, you're like, all right, cool, no problem. Like, I'm gonna get back to it. Yeah. But if you get a 3-yard run and you got 12 carries, it hits you totally different. But he took, advantage of his opportunity and really displayed what he could do even before Zach kind of, started eating into his carries the last couple of years and things of that nature. But I think overall they work best, that offense, with a two-back system. Yeah. Right, like you said, a lot of teams do that now. One, because they don't want to pay the running back position, right? It's either you want to pair you with a guy who's been in the league for a few years and bring a draftee guy in, and then when it's time to pay you, right, look at Najee Harris. Najee Harris was there for the whole time. Bell cow, okay, it's time to pay you. We're not going to do that. Let's go get Kenneth Gainwell, and let's go get Jaylen Warren.
Jaylen Warren, yeah.
And they can do the same thing, two dudes, two different things for less the fraction of the money.
Yeah.
Right? So that's how that operates. Sucks because, we do a lot in the backfield from blocking, catching the ball, running the ball, and things of that nature. And you get banged up a lot at that position. So you love to see this, that position get back to being compensated in that way. But the way it is, it's such a pass-heavy offensive game that, you got to have two dudes. And that's just where it's at right now.
It's interesting to think about this because I'm old enough to remember, Barry Sanders. And, I could go down the list of teams back in the day when I first started watching football. And the majority of them did have a bell cow. Yeah. And the running back position once upon a time was thought to be like, okay, quarterback one, but you better have a good running back too, and you better have one awesome one. And then it moved into the space where it does feel like teams treat people like you, like you're expendable. Yeah. Like, okay, if you're going to suddenly become more expensive, we'll rely on a young back that we just took in the 5th round, and we'll pay him a couple $1 million and good luck, go on your way. Yeah. When did that shift kind of occur? Is it because the league went into such a pass-heavy offensive attack? Because it wasn't like that, 10, 15 years ago.
Yeah, 10, 15 years ago is probably the perfect number. I think around 2011 is when we saw the offensive game just boom, these different pass concepts and different things of that nature. I think the talent of the quarterback position also got a lot better. I would assume that everybody would, believe that the generation of Brady, Manning Roethlisberger, all those type of dudes, Breeze even. Like, you talking Aaron Rodgers, like, that generation is going to be even Stafford, right now. Like, he's number 5 or 6 in yardage already,
Yeah.
right? I mean, he's played a while, but still it's like the game has just changed so much, and it was around that time period that it was changing to where teams started to realize, okay, instead of us wanting just a super, super bell cow back, right? Because a lot of those times, a lot of those dudes also weren't great pass catchers, right? So now once the game is changing to more pass catching, and you need guys to, the analytics start playing a big part into that and things of that nature, right? Like, you wouldn't look at a Kenneth Gainwell or Jaylen Warren as super big bell cow backs.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Like, even looking to Derrick Henry, like you mentioned, he's sharing a lot of carries. This past season, he was sharing a lot of carries, and that had nothing to do with age, because we saw once he just got all the carries, it was the same Derrick Henry we've seen for years. So a lot of that stuff changes. I think, around 2011, and I mean, I've looked into it, and I think the numbers kind of show it, where you see all these quarterbacks throwing 4,000, 4,500 yards a game, right? Breeze and these dudes, and breaking all these records, to where now that's just normal. And, as much as they split running backs out wide now, if you can't catch, that's why Chris McCaffrey is so, so valuable. And that's what a bell cow back today looks like. A guy who can go catch this ball at a high clip, right? Not just catch swings or, check down plays, but like actually building him into a route concept and things of that nature. And then also run the ball between the tackles and stay healthy to some degree, right? That's what the new age bell cow looks like. And you'll start seeing a lot of guys who are young, 15, 16, start tailoring their game after a guy like Christian McCaffrey.
Yeah.
And not tailoring it like I tailored my game after a Marshawn Lynch or Adrian Peterson. You won't do that anymore. You're going to start looking at, okay, what does the league want?
Mm-hmm.
Because you have to tailor yourself to the league. What does the league want? We want a guy who can possibly go get us 1,000 rushing, 1,000 receiving.
Who right now? Because now you have me thinking. Like, every time I watch Bijan Robinson play, I'm like, that dude's the best.
Really, yeah.
Like, but as far as the reputation around the league as the best back in the league right now, who would you say that is? Maybe it's McCaffrey. I don't know.
I think I still go McCaffrey. I still go McCaffrey because look at what happened to the team this year, and then look at what happened where the team was when they went to the Super Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
He was the driving force on both of these teams.
Yeah.
Even when they were healthy and they went to the Super Bowl, even when they were banged up and they got all the way to the second round playoffs when Brock Purdy was missing half the year with a turf toe injury, McCaffrey was the same dude that you knew defense is going into a game. He's going to touch the ball probably 25, 30 times, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he still carried that team, and they were decimated on defense. So to me, Bijan's an awesome, awesome talent. Now, the coaching and all that type of stuff matters, right? McCaffrey's in a good spot with the coaching. Obviously, Atlanta isn't. They fired their guy. But, at some point, I think Bijan is going to take over the game because, like I said, he can do both.
Yeah.
Right now, there's not many backs that can do both at a high clip. There's guys who can do it, like James Cook can do it. JT can do it to some degree in the passing game, which I'm sure he's probably working on and seeing that and things of that nature. But outside of just being on a high clip of doing that, those two dudes are definitely the best two. Even Jahmyr Gibbs is.
Yeah.
I mean, once he gets out of that backfield,
right?
He's sharing splits.
Yeah.
Right now, and he becomes just the number one back there, and the offense kind of starts changing towards him a little bit. He's going to take off again as well. So I think those three dudes, but I would have to go McCaffrey still number one.
Yeah, Gibbs is a great one. But, yeah, Montgomery eats into a lot of his carries, too, and he's a really good back.
Yeah, but David's more similar to my game.
Right, yeah.
I think he was a year before me, but, I watched a lot of his film. I want to say he was at Iowa State, I want to say, or somewhere like that.
That sounds right.
But, so I watched a lot of his film. I remember when he went to Chicago. Look at Josh Jacobs, right? You talk about guys who just run between the A-gaps. Now, Josh can catch the ball a bit as well, but he's not doing it at a high clip to where you're, going into a game actually worried about
Iowa State, you were right, yeah.
So, that's where the game is at right now with the backs. They're looking for smaller guys, quicker guys who can catch the ball, where they can throw the ball to you 6-7 times a game. not just in screens, not just in checkdown, but actually building you into the offense. It was part of the same thing that I was seeing in Cincinnati with Chase Brown. Chase is an awesome talent, right? Like he's explosive, and he can do a lot of those things that those other guys can do. With that offense, though, it's tough to do it because you have Jamar Chase, T. Higgins. That's going to commend a lot of the offense.
Yep.
But he has the ability to do it at a high clip as well. And obviously, now will we see it? Don't know. And that'd be another interesting thing to kind of see how his contract situation plays out with Cincinnati, just because of, again, just globally how the running back position is viewed.
Yeah.
Right. Like if they can find a Chase Brown in the 5th round, I guarantee you the people upstairs believe they can find another Chase Brown in the 5th round.
Yeah.
Cheaper.
When it comes to a timeshare, what are the challenges of staying prepared? What are the challenges of maintaining the relationship with the teammate that you're competing with? Because, look, nobody wants – you never want anybody to get hurt. You never want that. But I just wonder if there was part of Kenneth Walker that went, okay, now it's my time to show you what I can do. Yeah. Love you, Zach, but get better. And while you're on the mend, I'm going to show the world what I can do if I'm the feature back. You know, Utah football learned that both Devin Dampier and Bert Ficklin are coming back. Mm-hmm. And every time anyone's interviewed that's in this position, they all say the right things. Like, no, that's my guy. I love him. And I'm just kind of wondering if the competitor inside of you is like, well, I want the chance to show the world what I can do without having to share these loads.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you know, first of all, we're all human, right?
Sure,
so
yeah.
Like you have that, right, you got the angel and then the other guy on your shoulder, right? Sometimes you're battling that, and now you take that same, you know, mindset and then put it on a super competitive person.
Right.
Right? Like, you can only imagine just the thoughts that can run through your head sometimes, right? Like, it's like, all right, if this dude had 15 carries and I had 8 that game, man, I would have done so much better with 15, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's normal.
Yeah.
And anybody tell you that, no, we don't, okay, anyways. But, like, I kind of felt through that, not felt it, but I kind of went through that to some degree, and I could kind of see it in my mind with when I got hurt, right? And me and Chase were splitting carries at first, and then, you know, obviously I'm older than him, so, you know, we had a different relationship outside of being like, okay, let me compete for the spot, like if we were in a contract here, right? I did it when I was in Indy as well with JT. It wasn't both of those dudes I have great relationships with, right? Like if I need to pick up the phone, send a text, whatever, call, like it'll happen. It won't be a problem. It was never any bad blood. But at the same time, right, you're like, man, there was times where JT we'll put in practice, we'll put in this certain play just for him. And I'm like, I can make that play work too. Right? Like that's just a competitive nature. There's times where, you know, JT would see that I was in on the goal line situation. I'm probably going to get a touchdown here, right? And he's probably like, shoot, I need that touchdown as well, right? And that's just fair. That's normal. So, you know, I'm sure even, you know, Dampier and Fick, they have that same competitive edge as well, that they are going to want each other to do well, because that's just a good sign of just good people at the same time.
For sure.
Right?
Good point, yeah.
But at the same time, on the other side of that is what makes you, that competitive edge that is different from other guys, right? So that plays a big part into it as well. Thankfully, you know, at the U, we got 2 dudes that are just really good people, and they really actually want to see each other succeed, because at the end of the day, it's about the team. So if they're doing well, the team's probably doing well.
Yeah. You're on social media. I wonder, like, let's say you were in Indianapolis with Jonathan Taylor, and there was a goal line call where you scored a touchdown. Did you ever hear from any loser mouth breather fantasy football owners? It's like, hey, you ruined my Sunday, you jerk.
I mean, no, I haven't.
Good.
You know, that time period, you know, people were pretty happy that I was helping them out in the fantasy world. So I still get people to tell me that and things of that nature. But no, I didn't. That didn't happen.
Good.
Which was nice.
That is nice. Hey, before I set you loose, you may not have heard, but Kyle Whittingham lives in Ann Arbor now. Which is still, every time I say that out loud, I'm like, what the hell? He's here 21 years, you know? I just wonder, now that there's been a couple months of space, your thoughts on how that all went down, and your thoughts on your former head coach who's coaching Michigan, and your thoughts on a guy that you know really well, and Morgan Scalley, who's taken over the Utah football program.
Yeah. I'll start with Coach Witt leaving. You know, I was on record saying that I didn't think that he would leave. I thought for sure, after winning 10 games this year, obviously getting beat out by the two teams that were clearly the better teams in the conference, that they would give him another shot at it.
Yeah.
Right? Just to allow him to put it probably on his resume of being in that championship game after being in so many different conference championship games. I'm like, okay, that's my, viewpoint of it and belief that would happen. And then shockingly, right? Shockingly to some degree, right? He's letting us know that he's stepping down. And then again, I'm a big believer in how you say things, right? So him saying I'm stepping down tells you that he was clearly never done coaching.
That caught your attention right away.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Just reading that, and I think I put a tweet out the same day when I saw that. That's like, that tells you everything you need to know.
Yeah.
Right? Like, obviously, I know other things as well, but at the same time, I was like, just for the average fan that doesn't know the inner workings and understanding of other things, I was like, this tells you everything you know. Like, he clearly wanted to be back there, and, everybody have been pissed about him, poaching all these different coaches and players or whatever. I'm like, no, you guys have just been spoiled for 20-plus years that you didn't have to see a coaching change.
Yeah.
That is super normal, right? Like, if you look around anywhere, I guarantee you there's a player and a coach that have crossed paths at some point and is looking out for that player or that coach, right? And that's normal. It's like if you were working at a law firm and you two guys leave, you're going to bring some of those guys that you connected with on a really high level and bring them along with you just because you mesh, right? So, that was normal for me. I hated to see so many people talk negative about that standpoint of things and just not, again, the average fan not understanding just how that is what happens in every single sport when there's a change. Like players, we go through it too. It's like, all right, if, say, Coach Witt would have got fired in 2017, right, and they bring in a guy from Lord knows where, right?
Yeah.
Guarantee you he's going to bring some of his players. I mean, we literally just did it. Where do you think Dan Pierre came from?
Exactly. Yeah. Right.
Like, no one looks at it from that lens,
Right.
and understands, like, bro, a lot of these dudes you're getting them from somewhere else. Like, look at Miami and what they just did to Duke. They just literally took both of their best players,
Right,
and signed them. But again, I'm happy for Coach Witt to be out there. I mean, it was a great opportunity. It landed literally in his lap. So, that's a really cool thing because now I got two teams I can just sit back on a Saturday and actually watch both games. And
100%.
put this YouTube TV thing to work. So that's pretty nice.
Yeah.
But at the same time, for Coach Scally, I'm excited.
Yep.
Obviously he was there when I was there, and him being a defensive coach, we didn't overlap a ton. But, I'm excited just to see how he can galvanize and lead these dudes because, all the dudes I played with on defense, which was a really good defensive group for those 4 years, all those dudes loved him. They all loved him. And if every single dude loved him like that, I can only imagine the type of energy and the effort that he's actually going to put into an entire team. And like he said, he's legit a Utah man. Like, when he kept saying, I'm one of you, like he truly meant that from his soul, not his heart. Like he literally meant that. So these players are lucky. They're going to get somebody who's going to pour into them like crazy. Like, and he's a workaholic. So he's going to make sure that his staff, all these guys that he's hired that people might remember from a long time ago or just don't know either, like all those dudes are going to be a spitting image of him. And like I said, like I think this team can still be really good. They lost a lot of people. So that'll be challenging. It's going to be some ups and downs. Like, again, you can't expect him to just walk in and take over Coach Witt's spot as if, you can't just take over 21 years. I'm sorry. Like, it doesn't work like that. Now, unless you win a championship and a national championship, that'll get people talking.
Yes, it will.
But if you win 8-9 games, which I think is the reality that people just don't want to say, it's like, I get it, we're hyped, and you're mad that Coach Witt left the way he left, and he took all these other people that whatever, cool. But the reality is, from my standpoint, this is probably an 8 to 9 win team because if you look at the roster, did you do anything to say I'm better than Texas Tech or BYU? You haven't. So, again, you have to be, truthful at the same time. And, at the end of the day, I think it'll be fun because the way these guys are going to play, he's going to recruit smart guys. Like the mantra, the standard, things of that nature that you're not going to change that from what Coach Witt had because at the end of the day, Coach Scally is a Coach Witt guy.
Yeah.
So, looking forward to that. excited for that. And then, I mean, I'll be at all the games for sure, just like I was this past season.
100%. I mean, support the team that you love. If they win 9 games year one under Morgan, I think that's a win, dude. I really do. And whenever I've seen or heard a Utah fan getting mad at Kyle, I'm like, find your favorite New Mexico fan and go give him a hug then, because you infiltrated the entire program yesterday. Well, look, it's great to see you as always. You know you got a spot here anytime. Stay safe and be well, okay?
Yes, sir, my man. Appreciate you.
The great Zach Moss, one of the best to ever do it at the U from that 2019 team, and obviously a longtime NFL running back, breaking down the Super Bowl and talking some football. All right, we'll catch a break. Another running back from the NFL, this time a Super Bowl winner, will be Robert Turbin. He joins us coming up next. Move over to Lily Shimbashi and Sean Syed. Busy Monday show. Keep it right here on ESPN 700. All right, good stuff from the legend Zach Moss today. I say this often. The 2019 Utah football team on paper may have been the best football team we've ever had in the state. And Zach wasn't just the best running back on that team. He may have been the best football player, period. Always pulling for our guy. We're efforting Robert Turbin, who won a Super Bowl with the Seattle Seahawks as Marshawn Lynch's backup. Of course, an awesome running back at Utah State, where he was the Mountain West Conference Offensive Player of the Year. We'll bring in Lily Shimbashi today from Sports-ish, who joined us when she started this little endeavor. Now she's a rising star. Speaking of which, did you have trouble booking Lily, who at one point joined us when she first started this thing and now is like too important for everybody?
Yeah, I was going to say, I had to try her a few times to get her. She's a big deal now.
She is a big deal. And I'm excited to bring her in. Sean Syed, Sumer Sports, will join the program today. Of course, a lot of conversation about the Super Bowl. What is your, as of now, your level of Olympic consumption so far over the weekend?
Pretty minimal.
Yeah, same.
Pretty minimal. We got
Same.
it was all football for the weekend, but as the Super Bowl wraps up and we turn our attention to it, I'll be dialed into some Olympic action. It's always top of mind, especially with the Winter Olympics allegedly coming here in 10 years.
Well,
8 years.
I'm no expert, but we might need snow for that.
We could. I saw ski joring.
I don't know what that is.
It's where they're skiing behind the horse.
Oh, okay.
That was downtown over the weekend. They had a truck in snow into Salt Lake City.
Dude, I played golf again over the weekend
and melted immediately.
Legitimately needed sunscreen.
Yeah.
It's February.
Yeah. Hoping for a little different weather pattern in the next couple months, but definitely in 2034.
Well, hopefully in 2034. That's like talking about Jazz future draft picks. Hey, they gave up 2031.
Right.
We are getting rain this week, but it's not going to be very cold. Today, it's about 44 degrees, cloudy, a little rain this morning, so we'll have to see. I also have not really dug into the Olympic stuff. I will, because I'm a sucker for it. Whether it's winter or summer games, I always enjoy getting to know these athletes and watching the games. But a lot of football over the weekend. But while we are efforting Robert Turbin, let's do just a little Jazz here, because what we saw against Orlando was pretty much what we are going to see all year long, okay? Let me be clear. I am not a fan of the following: the incentive structure of pro basketball, okay? So for everybody that's coming at the Jazz with this stuff, like, are you not paying attention to the rest of the landscape of the league? The Washington Wizards traded for Anthony Davis and Trae Young, okay? Anthony Davis, when healthy, is probably one of the top, still probably a top 10, 12 player. I'm not a huge Trae guy, but I think there's something to like about what Washington is building. And the two-star players they traded for, where they've allocated about 40 to 50% of their cap, are not going to play pretty much all year. You want to know why? Because the Washington Wizards have a top 8 protected pick that they have to give up if they're not in the bottom 8. Where have we heard that before? Oh, yeah, the Utah Jazz. So stop yelling at the Jazz for this, okay? And I understand the frustration about the hard thing about the Orlando game is that watching specifically Lauri Markkanen and Jaren Jackson Jr. play off each other was awesome. I was blown away. I don't know if it's a compliment to Will Hardy. I don't know if it's a compliment to Lauri and Jaren Jackson Jr. just individually. But in 25 minutes, Jaren Jackson had 22 points, 4 boards, and 3 assists and 3 steals, okay? He was 9 of 17 from the floor, knocked down a couple of threes. And Lauri, in 27 minutes, had 27 points. 12 of 21, 3 of 6 and 3, had 7 boards. So those two individually, without really even practicing together or even knowing each other, there's a synergistic offensive flow to the two of them that I was not anticipating with their first game together. And Yusuf Nurkic looked really comfortable playing alongside both of them. He had 14 boards. He had 6 assists. He only had 3 points. But Nurkic, in Will Hardy's system, because of his size and skill, like these European bigs, man, you watch Nikola Jokic, you watch some of the other ones, and this goes back to my man Arvydas Sabonis. They've always been just tremendously skilled as far as the ability to make plays for others, not just get points and buckets for themselves. And remember, the Denver Nuggets once upon a time had a legitimate debate. Who do we keep, Yusuf Nurkic or Nikola Jokic? That's a real thing, kids. Obviously, they made the right decision. But Nurkic has had his playmaking ability like unlocked under Will Hardy. And so to see those three bigs, Jaren's 6'10", Lowry 7'1", Nurk is 7'2", to see the way they were able to play off each other, unfortunately, it should give you a lot of excitement for next season. Because the other thing that transpired is the Jazz took a lead into the fourth quarter. And then Will just sat Lowry, sat Jaren Jackson Jr., sat Yusuf Nurkic. And there's a snapshot to the game that really encapsulates the frustration of people that tune in to watch pro basketball and love their team and want to see them be serious about competing. And as Orlando was making their run past the Jazz and then ultimately leading to the Magic winning the game 120-117, the cameras caught Lauri Markkanen, Jaren Jackson Jr., Yusuf Nurkic, and Kevin Love sitting next to each other on the bench, watching the game and laughing out loud. LOLing, as the kids would say. That pissed a lot of people off, okay? Because I understand the side of this conversation where it's like, look, if you're not going to be serious about competing, what exactly are we doing here? You're in the wrong business. Now, sometimes in the NBA, they do say the quiet part out loud. And I always point to a couple of years ago, Dallas Mavericks lose in the postseason. They're out of the playoffs. Jason Kidd is sitting at the podium, and he's taking questions. And they're asking him what you ask a coach after the team is basically bumped out of the postseason. Are you disappointed? What do you have to do differently? How are the guys in the locker room taking this? And Jason Kidd, in a moment of brevity and honesty, probably too much so, looked at the group and said, you guys just don't get it. This league is simply millionaires cheering for other millionaires. And you're like, dude, don't say that out loud. We want honesty from coaches and players. We want authenticity in a world where authenticity seems to be just evaporated. But what Jason Kidd essentially admitted is, okay, postseason basketball, yeah, we would have liked to win, but you realize all these guys are about to hop on private jets and go to wherever they want to enjoy themselves, because that's the life we have, and that's the life you do not have. It's one of the reasons why a lot of people don't love LeBron. Because LeBron has made statements in the past where it's like, well, I'm LeBron James and you're not. And you have to go back to living your life and I can continue to live my life. And what we desire, in quite frankly, the last bastion of what is real and unpredictable, which is why I tell you every day, do not bet on this stuff. The last bastion of humans performing an endeavor that is absolutely unpredictable, which is why we are tuned in, which is why it's so gripping, is sports. It is. There's no such thing as reality TV. All that crap is scripted. The real Mormon whatever wives of whatever the hell that is, it's all scripted, okay? Every the Kardashians, I don't even know enough about it to dig into all the series. None of that is real because it's human nature to innately change when a camera is around you. You're simply going to act differently. And a lot of them simply just have scripts, right? The last bastion of human endeavor that is absolutely unpredictable, which is why it's so cool to watch, is sports. And I was struck yesterday after the game when Drake May, he just handled it so well. He had just lost, because the other thing about this, and Zach certainly would know this as well, if not better than anybody. If you're a young player and you have an opportunity to play in a Super Bowl, okay, if you're like a rookie or a second-year guy, and you make it to a Super Bowl, or you make it to an NBA Finals, or you make it to the World Series, or you make it to the final game or match of your sport, and you're a first or a second-year guy, you think to yourself, I'm going to be back here on multiple occasions. If I can do this now as a rookie, I'm going to have multiple chances moving forward. You know what the reality is? A lot of these guys never see the stage again. Some of them do. And if you're good enough and lucky enough and you're surrounded by good coaching and good teammates, maybe you do see multiple chances to win a Super Bowl. Some of them you go once and you never get back to that stage. I'm not a huge Kevin Costner guy, as been outlined, but if it's a baseball movie, I think it's pretty gripping. And the story of Moonlight Graham, right, in the Field of Dreams movie, where he's a minor league baseball player and he just wanted to get to the majors to just have that moment. And then he talks about how the fact that he thought that he was going to have more, but he only had that one, right? He had the one at bat where it was a sacrifice fly. He didn't even get a hit, but advanced the runner. The runner scores, and he runs off the field, and he winks, and he gives the tip of the cap. Like, that's always struck me as such a beautiful moment in cinema to kind of encapsulate what sports manifests for a lot of these athletes. The Olympics are a perfect example. These men and women train their entire life for like 5 seconds. They train their entire life for one potential moment. And you catch an edge on a ski and you fall, and everything you've worked for is done. You're in the half pipe on a snowboard, you miss one turn, and everything you've worked for is done. You're a curler and you miss the broom sweep or whatever the hell that is, and then boom, it's done. So to hear Drake May yesterday, through tears and emotion, discuss his appreciation for his teammates and coaches while he's crying after losing the Super Bowl. And look, Drake did not play well. He did not have time either. New England's offensive line, which prior to the game, a lot of the experts we had on the show talked about as their Achilles heel, was atrocious. Drake was running for his life. I thought Josh McDaniels was outcoached. Mike McDonald is kind of known as the Sean McVay of defense, the great young NFL defensive mind, flexed his muscles yesterday. And Josh McDaniels, who's one of the most well-respected coordinators, not coaches, as we've learned, I thought he called a horrible game. They could not run the ball, and they didn't really try. Ramondre Stevenson had 7 carries. Trayvon had 6. And Drake May, I mean, he's a little bit Josh Allen-y with his way to, his ability to run the ball when plays break down, and oftentimes design quarterback runs, and not just like the let's get 2 yards and get out of bounds to avoid a sack. Like, he'll run it down your throat down the middle of the field. Like, Josh is really the guy that will do that. There are others too, but they didn't utilize Drake's ability to kind of make plays with his feet. And I know they were down. Okay, so that led to the necessity of trying to air it out. But even in the first half, there was a lot of pressure on Drake. And by pressure, I mean the pressure that the Patriots put on him individually, then attendant to that, the pressure that the Seattle defense put on him because the offensive line was breaking down. I mean, Ernest Jones Jr., the E-Man Ward kid, who suffered a little bit of an injury, and he was fine. Is he on the phone right now, or are we catching a break? He's on the phone right now.
Yep.
Okay. All right. I'll get back to this, but our next guest actually won a Super Bowl, and I did not. Hello, Robert Turbin. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great. I'm feeling real good, actually.
I'm sure you are. I mean, you joined us last week, which we appreciated, but I know I don't have you for a lot of time, so let's get into it. What were your main takeaways of Seattle winning the thing?
Well, they played as I predicted. We talked last week. I thought the score was going to be 31-14. Came pretty close to it. I mean, look, Seattle proved and played the way that they'd really been playing the last quarter of the season all the way through the playoffs, dominant defensively and efficient enough offensively to get points on the board and to make timely big plays to be able to get into the end zone. And, you just knew that the Patriots, look, respectable team, but just weren't going to be able to keep up, right? Seahawks were more physical, more dominant, faster, more explosive, and that's why they resulted in the W.
So it's a good day to be a running back, Robert, as you know. And we just had Zach Moss in studio. Kenneth Walker III is your MVP. I felt like he was deserving. I wonder, as a guy that, and Zach experienced this too, as a guy that, was in some timeshares, what sort of shackles, you never want anyone to get hurt, but Zach, get better, and I've got this, right? Like, what sort of shackles do you think were taken off Kenneth Walker III during this playoff run?
I don't think any shackles were taken off. I don't think any shackles were taken off at all because, Kenneth Walker III has had many opportunities to be the bell cow back, and he's done that successfully. I mean, he's had to do that early in his career. In Seattle, he's no stranger to having to carry the ball 20-plus times or touch the ball 20 or 30-plus times within a game. I thought it actually suited him, for a guy like Zach Charbonnet to, come in and be a teammate and, spell him a lot of the season the way that he did. If you think about it, what it created for Kenneth Walker III was longevity through this season. And at the end of the year, when they really needed to lean on him, they were able to do that with him being at 100% essentially, for the remainder of the season. So I've always thought he was a special back. I don't think the shackles were taken off at all. I think they've always been off. He just had to find his way. I think the game has slowed down for him tremendously compared to the first 3 years. And you got to give a lot of credit to Clint Kubiak and that offensive staff. The way that Kenneth Walker III would approach the line of scrimmage and wait, and then boom, hit the crease when he saw it, that was something that wasn't in his game early. He was always in a rush, and he's developed the patience needed to be a Super Bowl MVP running back the way that he was last night. And so no shackles taken off, in my opinion. This has always been Kenneth Walker III.
Good perspective there. Do you think we're going to see the same approach with Charbonnet healthy again next year? I mean, so many teams do it now. Do you think it's going to continue to be a timeshare, Robert?
Absolutely. It just depends on how it looks, though, because the truth is Zach's going to come off an ACL, so we don't know when the timeline is in terms of him being healthy. Is he going to be healthy by week 1? We'll see. How much training camp is he going to have? We'll see. But the important factor to this is that you're going to have a new offensive coordinator. And, we saw what happened with Detroit when Ben Johnson took the head coaching job in Chicago. The offensive coordinator who replaced Ben Johnson was not able to use, those two running backs in Montgomery and Gibbs the same way Ben Johnson did. And so the impact was different. So you got to be concerned a little bit about Kubiak going to the Raiders because, you don't know how the function of the offense is going to sort of evolve with the new play caller. You don't know if you're going to get the same success with the 1-2 punch, so it remains to be seen.
I need you to help me understand. And look, a lot of people pointed out that the Patriots' offensive line may not have been, their strength. But schematically, X's and O's, how did Seattle do that? I mean, a lot of people criticizing Drake May today, and the young quarterback, of course, wasn't great. But Seattle's defense, to me, just took anything away from them that they wanted to. How did they do that, Robert? Help us understand this.
Well, to me, it was the timely pressures that they brought from the outside. Witherspoon, they would bring the nickel and the weak side linebacker on blitzes throughout the entire game, but they were timely. Like you couldn't get a beat on it. They even brought that blitz even in 2-minute situations. And I think that's where people are a little bit hard on Drake May because he was unable to recognize and unable to see it. But you got to give a lot of credit to Mike McDonald for scheming it up and making the picture look a little bit dirty for him so he's not able to recognize it. Yeah, I think Josh McDaniels deserves a little bit of blame too because there was no answer to the blitz. Like I'm watching the game and I'm watching the replay and I've been able to watch a little bit of the tape today and it's like, man, where's the hot route? Stephon Diggs is lined up in the slot. Here comes the slot pressure. Why is he still running a 10-yard route? He should be looking right now. He should be changing his route and going into the flat. Like, that's automatic in offenses. Every offense that I've played in, when there's a blitz and that's your guy, but you're on a route, you become the hot guy. So you got to look right now. And the Patriots, for whatever reason, just didn't have that. They didn't have that in their offense. They didn't have that adjustment even in the second half. And so, Drake May, you can criticize him if you want, but I think a lot of the attention needs to go to Josh McDaniels in terms of, not being prepared for the answers to the blitz, but then you got to give credit to Mike McDonald because typically the Seahawks aren't a blitzing team. So they changed up their game plan for this game against the Patriots, and it worked to perfection.
All right, before I say lose, because I know you got to go, it's pretty, and we do this in media where we're prisoners of the moment, but Seattle has Sam under contract for 2 more years, and it's team-friendly. Mike McDonald's 38, and they have the 6th most cap space in the NFL this offseason. Does it feel like this could be start of a little bit of a run where Seattle's going to have something to say about this for a few years now?
Yeah, I absolutely think so. Sam is a young player. They've got young players all around. They got guys under contract. Kenneth Walker will be back next season, but they're going to have to make some tough choices. But, the key factor to all of this is, the Seahawks, they had a lot of depth with their football team. Guys got injured, and other players were able to step in, whether it was the secondary, whether it was amongst the defensive line, offensive line, wherever it was, and they were still able to play at a high level. I think that is really the key factor here in terms of Seattle being able to sustain its success.
Thanks for the time, bud. Hey, congrats. I know you're part of the family. And, be good, be safe, and we'll chat soon, okay?
All right, I appreciate it.
All right, Robert Turbin, former Utah State running back. He was the Conference Offensive Player of the Year. He was unstoppable in college, had a really good pro career, backing up Marshawn Lynch, winning a Super Bowl, so we appreciate his time. All right, we'll catch a quick break, but coming up next, we'll kind of continue this conversation. We'll get back to what I was referring to with the incentive structure of pro basketball as well. We've got Lily Shimbashi from Sportsish, who was live at the Super Bowl, and Sean Syad from Sumer Sports, who was also at the Super Bowl. So plenty of football conversation coming up before we say goodnight at 6 o'clock right here on a Monday Drive on ESPN 700. This is angry music on a Monday. You okay in there?
Yeah, I put in your request.
All right. Okay, here's
I'm
your
wondering
assignment.
if our radio's mislabeled it.
Okay, let's get the request for the final segment of the show.
Because this isn't the great
I don't know what this
esteemed
is.
Kid Rock.
This sounds like it's an angry young man making music in his parents' basement.
Some garage tunes.
So we're gonna the request will play final segment of the show because there's some things that we need to do with that. Okay,
Yeah, I'll find that.
all right. So good stuff today. Zach Moss, Robert Turbin have joined us so far. So Zach, of course, one of the best to ever do it at the U, that 2019 team that we talk about all the time. Robert Turbin won a Super Bowl with Seattle, so it was fun to catch up with him for a couple of minutes. But before Turbo hopped on, we were kind of discussing this dynamic that is taking place now because the Jazz are taking a lot of heat. And I get it. This is one of those things. I'm not usually that guy. If you listen to the show, first of all, thank you. Appreciate that. How are you? I'm not one that usually takes both sides or straddles the fence. I like to, do what I can to be informed so I can have my own opinions on things, and we can certainly disagree about those. That's what makes the world go round. But with this scenario, let me ask you this. If you're a Jazz fan, okay, and you watched the you watched the first portion of that Jazz Magic game, then you saw Markkanen and Jaren Jackson Jr. and Nurk and all these guys. Those three specifically, though, are what stood out because people that were criticizing the trade, and a lot of them made some very valid points. So if you missed it, the stat was I think there are 40 players over the course of last year and so far this year that are 20-point per game players, 20 points or more per night. And the two players in that group that averaged the least amount of assists are Lauri Markkanen and Jaren Jackson Jr. So the question was going to be, and here's where I think Will shines, okay? Now, on this show, unlike others, we have been critical of Will Hardy as a result of what's been a atrocious defense for 4 straight years now, okay? How much of that is by design? That's the hard part, as we talk about with a lot of our NBA guests. The hard part about analyzing Will is they've been unserious about competing, and he has not had the same talent as his counterparts more often than not when he enters a gym. I think we saw some early returns in Will's first year when he had some adults like Mike Conley Jr. and Kelly Olynyk that allowed the Jazz to stay competitive. And that's when Danny, and at the time it was Danny Ainge and Justin Zanuck, who decided, look, this team might win too much, okay? We're rebuilding. We traded Donovan. We traded Rudy. We let go of one bucket O'Neal. Joe Ingles is no longer here. Okay, so we need to start figuring out what our future is going to look like. And if this young coach is really this good, we can't give him, the talent to win games on a level that is going to cost us some of our draft assets. So one portion of the criticism of the Jazz continuing to try to tank is simply how many draft picks that they have coming their way, right? This draft appears to be a little bit different, okay? If you believe what a lot of scouts or basketball analysts say about AJ DeBonta and Darren Peterson specifically, I'll throw Cameron Boozer in the mix as well because I watched the Duke-Carolina game the other night. Now Carolina won, but every time I hone in on Cam Boozer, there is a lot to like, okay? And we had, I think it was McMahon last week when I asked him the potential of the Jazz adding talent in this draft. When you look at the talent on paper, let's say the Jazz have the 3rd pick in the NBA draft, okay? When you look at what the Jazz have done as a result of the Jaren Jackson Jr. trade, or if you look at what the Jazz have done as a result of, the Lauri Markkanen story, which has been a lot of fun to watch. Lauri's clearly had his best years as a pro here in Utah under Will and with the Utah Jazz. I don't know what they're going to do with Yusuf Nurkic, but Walker Kessler fully healthy, I believe, is still part of their plan moving forward. So does Cameron Boozer on paper fit in to this group? I think that's a fair question, but McMahon brought up an interesting point, and this is the age-old conversation as it pertains to the NBA draft and as it pertains to roster construction in pro basketball, adding free agents, and then making trades. How much of your decision-making is fit, and how much of it is simply the old cliche, take the best player available, right? And I think if you're the Jazz, even though you would love, even though you would love Darren Peterson and AJ DeBonce, because I went down to the BYU Houston game in Provo. I'm telling you, you see AJ in person and you get it. Now, BYU basketball right now, there's an interesting conversation surrounding it as a result of the reported $11 to $13 million you spent on your roster. You're trending towards a 7 seed. You're 0-5 in quad 1A opportunities. There are no signature wins on the schedule for BYU. And Kelvin Sampson, I'm telling you, I was there in person. Kelvin Sampson ran circles around Kevin Young on Saturday night. Kelvin Sampson's a Hall of Famer. He had great college teams at Oklahoma back in the day. He's been at Houston for a while, spent some time as an assistant in the pros. He's been in the game for decades and decades and decades. And this is really Kevin's first opportunity. I mean, he was a G League head coach, right? And then spent some time in the NBA as an assistant. And Kevin had opportunities to interview for head coaching jobs, including the Jazz job, by the way. Interviewed for the Celtics job when Danny was there. I'm not saying Kevin can't coach. I honestly think he did a better job with the team last year than he's done with the team this year. This is not an anti-Kevin Young diatribe, but watching that team play up close and Houston, by the way, Houston's awesome. I think Arizona is probably the best team in basketball. We got a good one tonight between Arizona and Kansas. But watching Houston up close, like, they're impossible. Defensively, they're so good. The Kingston Fleming kid, he's probably going to be a top 5 pick. He is impressive in person. There's a lot to like about him. He's a rangy 6'4", 190 guard, and he's only a freshman. So Houston's Utah's going to see Houston tomorrow. And last year, I think, if I remember this right, Porter, I don't know if you remember this, in the first half, at one point, Utah had, I want to say, 7 turnovers and 3 made baskets. It's something like, do you remember the game? I mean, it got out of hand quickly.
Yeah, it was in that ballpark where you're just not getting anything offensively. And when you don't have your key pieces who are more one-on-one talents going, then it just makes it really, really tough to get that engine turning.
Yeah, I mean, I left that game more impressed with Houston as opposed to being disappointed in the effort of BYU. I mean, that team could go to a Final Four. It could win a national championship, and it wouldn't shock me at all. Kelvin's, go ahead.
I think they're legitimately, there's 5 or 6 teams, Spence, that are, I'm going to take them over the field. They're ways better, and Houston's one of them, I think.
Yeah, I mean, they have size, they have depth, and that's one thing BYU is struggling with this year. Kelvin Sampson has 9 players on his roster that average 10 minutes or more, and he actually has, the Mercy Miller kid averages 9 minutes. So ultimately, he's got a 10-man rotation. I referenced Kingston Fleming. He's going to be a top 5 pick. He is unbelievably impressive in person. Manuel Sharp's been around the block for a minute. He's just a dog. Milo Suzan has a lot of experience. So I want to be clear, ultimately that was I was more impressed with Houston than I was BYU's not very good. BYU's not near as good as I thought they'd be. I'll admit to being completely wrong. On paper, I've said this a couple of different times. I feel like they have as much talent on paper, as many, potentially as any college basketball team that we've had in state since the peak Majerus years with Andre and Doliak and Van Horn and Britt and those guys Hano Metala probably never gets enough love. Year in and year out, it seemed like Rick had 3 or 4 pros for about 5 years straight. I don't think we've had a team on paper that matches that talent until what Kevin Young has in Provo. But ultimately, they're so isolation heavy. And the team last year, I think, actually was more fun to watch, if I'm honest. If it's not Rob Wright or if it's not AJ, they break down. Keba Keita and the Ahmed kid, they were missing layups. They couldn't finish. They don't protect the rim. The Kadeem Boop kid, number 7, zero clue why he plays. He is a net negative on both sides of the floor. Side note, he thinks he's awesome, which has always kind of annoyed me. But they're top heavy. They're ISO reliant. It wasn't a good game for Richie. But back to the original point, you see AJ up close and you're like, oh my gosh, he looks like Tracy McGrady did at that age. Like, he needs to fill out a little bit. He needs to add some strength. But McGrady did too. If you go back and watch McGrady, who came into the NBA out of high school, he was a freak athlete. He was really springy, but he was skinny. And it wasn't until he added some weight and strength that he became one of the best scorers in pro basketball. AJ has that type of talent. So when you look back to the original point, when you look at what the draft could potentially manifest for the Jazz, if they don't get one or two, and look, there are a lot of people that think Cameron Boozer should be the number 2 pick instead of AJ. I tend to disagree with that, just with the way the league is going. I think Darren has probably separated himself, Darren Peterson, who Utah held to a season low, by the way. Not nothing. Not a moral victory guy. But Darren seems to have cemented himself at 1. But let's say Darren's off the board at 1 and AJ DeBonce's off the board at 2. And the Jazz land at 3, and Cameron Boozer is sitting there. I think you take him. I do. I think at this point, with a roster that is now better than it was a week ago, certainly on the upward trajectory with the acquisition of Jaren Jackson Jr., even though you have Walker Kessler as your center and Lauri Markkanen, alongside Jaren Jackson, that appears to be the front court of the future for the Jazz. And quite frankly, the front court of the present, if Walker was healthy. Walker at the 5, Jaren Jackson Jr. at the 4. And then we'll just slot Markkanen in at the 3. I know we're kind of supposed to put these positions out of our head in the modern day NBA, where you just kind of want, like Oklahoma City is the perfect example, just like 5 players between 6'5" and 7'2" who can do everything. It's a new league, right? So we're not supposed to say point guard, center, shooting guard, but for the sake of how you analyze basketball rosters, the 5-man rotation, even though most people analyze Cameron Boozer as a 4, right? Stretch 4. I just think you take the best player you can. I don't know that you worry about fit, because you kind of look down the list a little bit, and Caleb Wilson's a really good player. He plays for Carolina. They beat Duke over the weekend. And we've already talked about Kingston Flemings, who I saw in Provo up close. He's a really, really impressive kid. And we're still 5 weeks away from Selection Sunday, and oftentimes we see players play themselves into the minds and the hearts of coaches and scouts during the NCAA tournament. Like Dante DiVincenzo was not even thought to be an NBA guy, and he was the 6th man at Villanova, but he essentially was their best player during their Final Four run, and he became an NBA player during that run. So things could change. The Keaton Wagler kid from Illinois, a lot of people like him a lot. So when you look at what the Jazz now have on paper, I do think even if AJ and Darren are off the board, I think you got to go Cam Boozer. And remember, I don't know how calculated this is, and it's not a trade that's rare for the Jazz. One of the assistant coaches for the New York Knicks is a guy named Rick Brunson. He's got a son named Jalen. Okay, the Jazz hired Carlos Boozer as a scout. Because the other intriguing thing about this draft process is you have A.J. DeBonce with a Utah experience, having played his college ball at Brigham Young, and Cameron Boozer, whose father is Carlos Boozer, who played for the Jazz and now is on staff as a scout. And so the desire is not just to draft and not just to develop, but ultimately to retain. And that's where the tricky thing has been for the Jazz. So to wrap this conversation up, I get the side of the conversation that sounds like be serious about competing. Losing is a habit. You are teaching your young players bad habits. And oh, by the way, as a fan, it's just frustrating to be watching the Magic game where the Jazz are actually leading Orlando, a good, not great team out of the Eastern Conference, but on the road. And Jaren Jackson Jr., Lauri Markkanen, and Yusuf Nurkic are all kind of interchanging, playing really, really well. It's like, go win the game. And then suddenly, Markkanen, Jaren Jackson Jr., Yusuf Nurkic, they're all sitting in the fourth quarter. And as I referenced last segment before Robert Turbin joined us, I'm watching the post-game Super Bowl coverage, and young Drake May handled himself so well in front of the world, in front of millions and millions of eyes after the game. He's fighting back tears. He's getting emotional, talking about his coaches, talking about his teammates, and talking about how he let them down. And I'm juxtaposing that to what I saw the night before, the one snapshot that seems to have gotten everybody's ire, where in the fourth quarter, as Will Hardy elected to sit Lauri Markkanen, Jaren Jackson Jr., Kevin Love, Yusuf Nurkic, the camera pans over to them, And as Orlando is making their run to take the lead and ultimately win the game, they are outwardly laughing on the bench. And it's like, okay, you've got this young kid who just lost a Super Bowl. He is beside himself. He cares. And you're asking us as pro basketball consumers to watch your product when a third of your league is unserious. And these guys are on the bench laughing as the other team is making the run to take the lead and win the game. It's such a bad look for the NBA, but my bottom line is this. Don't blame the Jazz for this. As a Jazz fan, would you like them to win 29 games this year and grab the number 9 pick and therefore not have a draft pick? This is the incentive structure of pro basketball, and it's the reality of what it is. And by my count, as of right now, there are 10 teams down the stretch that are going to be fighting to lose. Is that a problem? Yes, it is. Is it the fault of the Washington Wizards or the Brooklyn Nets or the Indiana Pacers or the Sacramento Kings? Well, we're going to put the Kings aside because they're kind of on their own island. The Pelicans, the Mavericks have joined in. The Grizzlies have joined in because they traded Desmond Bane last year and Jaren Jackson Jr. this year. I don't know what the Blazers are going to do, but they could join in this group of, like I said, 10 teams. A third of your league is front-facing about being unserious concerning competition. That is a problem. I'm not here to tell you that it's not. What I'm here to do is say people need to get off the Jazz for this because I see all the stuff on social. And look, are the Jazz being very blatant? Yes, they are. Because if it's not sitting Markkanen or Jaren Jackson Jr. or Nurkic or good players in the fourth quarter, it's maybe intentionally having the worst defense in the league. I don't know how you coach that. It feels pretty obvious. But as I was making the point last segment before Turbo hopped on, one of the things that makes it hard to analyze who Will Hardy is what exactly is happening behind the scenes that's leading them to manipulate lineups and manipulate schematic attacks in the name of keeping their draft picks. There's no way he's coaching his team to not play defense. There's no way he's intentionally instilling horrible defensive habits in his basketball team. But the data simply is the data for the fourth straight year. Worst team in the NBA on defense, not even close. And then you see for a moment why Austin Ainge decided to go get Jaren Jackson Jr. It's like, oh, wait, that's exciting. And then it's like Lucy taking the football away from Charlie Brown. They sit their guys, fourth quarter comes, Orlando runs by them, and they win. Same thing happened in Atlanta. In Atlanta, the Jazz had 8 players available. 8 players available. 8, guys, 8. They had 8 players available to play in that basketball game. I think it's a consensus that Lauri Markkanen is the best player on this team. On a night where the Jazz had 8 players available to play, Lauri Markkanen played 23 minutes. Svi Mikhailuk got 23 minutes. Little 10-minute action for Oscar Tshiebwe. And by the way, Isaiah Collier is playing 48 minutes a night. You had 8 players available, and Lauri plays 23 minutes. Like, come on. We know what you're doing. But again, this comes down to the incentive structure of the way the NBA has decided to set things up, and therefore there's nothing else we can do about it. So it's not the Jazz fault. I get if you're frustrated as a fan, but there are currently 10 teams in the NBA doing this. And remember, the Washington Wizards traded for Anthony Davis and Trae Young, and they're not going to play all year. Why is that? Washington has a top 8 protected draft pick that they lose if they're not in the bottom 8. It's the same thing as the Utah Jazz. All right, before we catch a break, we welcome in my friend. I wish she was here in studio. It was so fun to have her here. But Shelly from Wasatch Medical Spa on a Monday. Happy Monday, Shelly. How are you?
I'm doing great, Spence. Thanks for having me.
Well, I appreciate the time. So let's start by educating our listeners a little bit. Tell us about Wasatch Medical Spa. Tell us about you. Tell us about your staff and some of the educational kind of protocols you guys go through.
Okay, I'm Shelly Wilkinson. I'm a board-certified nurse practitioner for the last 23 years. I now have an integrative medicine clinic called Wasatch Medical Spa, where we offer Eastern and Western medicine. We are always up to date on the cutting-edge technologies and education when it comes to how we treat our patients. And we have this new technology called Apex RF that we're talking about today.
All right, so let's talk about this technology. Interesting enough, it was trusted in women's intimate wellness for over 10 years and now adapted for men. And you are the only person in Utah that has access to this, Shelly. What should our listeners know?
Well, we're the first in Utah, and it's a radio frequency heat treatment that helps with men's sexual function. It helps with size, girth, sensation, and duration, which can also increase partner satisfaction. And it works. It's been almost 100% of the men that we have treated would recommend it to someone else.
So, when you were in studio last week, I was fascinated because I learned a lot about this. Because I think when most people just hear men's sexual wellness, they think, well, I don't have ED, so I don't really need any sort of assistance. But this is more far reaching than just that one problem, isn't it? Kind of help us understand what that means.
For sure. I mean, it does help with ED, but it helps with any type of sexual challenge, even if you're just trying to improve your sexual function. It helps with vascular issues because it improves blood flow and collagen growth to the area. It helps with diabetes and just the age-related changes that happen in men from aging.
And you referenced when you were here that you had your staff tell their partners, "All right, guys, you're our guinea pigs." And from what I recall, the feedback was unanimously good. Is that fair?
Totally fair. They were all surprised because none of them thought they had issues, and every single one of them noticed improvement.
I think one of the things you mentioned that I want to underscore, because this really is about, in my humble opinion, it's about satisfying your partner, right? Like you really, if you're in a relationship, it's a key piece of what your relationship is about. So when it comes to the satisfaction level of partners, Shelly, what does that sound like?
Oh my goodness. Every woman should have their husband or their partner do this treatment because it really helps the woman too when things are functioning better for the man. So it definitely improves satisfaction. It can decrease your time to climax. It's awesome.
All right, so let's bottom line this. How can our listeners get a hold of you, and what does the process look like?
Okay, so go to our website at wasatchmedicalspa.com. Again, that's wasatchmedicalspa.com. And go ahead and schedule a consult plus first treatment. Those who are hearing this radio ad will get a free consult plus 50% off of your first visit. Typically, you'll need 5 or 6 visits to get the best results. And then you'll come in for a consult, and then you'll be able to meet with one of our nurses and get your treatment done.
All right, I want to repeat that deal because 50% off your first treatment, you're saving hundreds and hundreds of dollars, and then it's the free consultation as a result of them being a client on the show. Here's how you book. As Shelly referenced, you go to wasatchmedicalspa.com. That's wasatchmedicalspa.com, wasatchmedicalspa.com. When you book, make sure you tell them you heard this on the show so you can get the 50% off and the free consultation. Or for a faster booking, here's the phone number if you want to pick up your phone and call right now at 385-333-6000. That's 385-333-6000, 385-333-6000. Shelly, thanks so much.
Thank you, Spence. Bye.
All right, 2 hours down, 2 hours to go. Lily Shimbashi and Sean Syed, that is your 4 o'clock hour. Then we'll launch into the 5. Keep it here on ESPN 700. All right, we got Sean Syed joining us coming up in a little bit. And we'll get to the 5 o'clock hour of the show. The Seattle Seahawks are your Super Bowl 60 champion. Our next guest was live on site. We used to have her all the time, but now she's a big deal. Lily, I understand that Porter tried to book you 4 or 5 different times before we could actually find a slot. Is that true?
No. I will always make time for my big brother.
Lily Shimbashi, Sports-ish. You know, it's funny, when the news was announced that you had been hired by ESPN, I had a lot of people reach out that remembered your early hits on this radio show. So I wanted to start with just the update. I mean, truly, this little idea that you had all on your own a couple years later has grown into this very viable, very successful business. And I am now known as, and by the way, there are some people that do not believe me when I say, no, that's my sister. I am her big brother. So what has this ride been like for you, Lily? Just fill us in.
Yeah, well, it's been a very big year for us. I mean, about 5 years ago, I just finally have had it with mainstream sports media and felt like it was very much catered to men. And I, having been in our family, had grown up around sports my entire life and just loved them to their core. I'm a sports fan at my core and wanted to create a community for female sports fans. And so I started posting on social media, and we've really been steadily growing for the last several years. But this past year in particular, I think some big eyes started to notice us a little bit more. And so we've now joined into a partnership with a company called Together, which is the fastest growing women's sports media company in the world. And then I just signed a contract as a creator for, you know, of course, the biggest network in sports, ESPN. Those 4 letters are very valuable. So we are really, really excited to bring the sports and the ish, as we like to say, a little bit more mainstream.
So tell me what that is going to look like. I mean, is it going to be you creating the content, or are they going to give you some help? Because it does feel like you're going to be asked, and have already been asked, to do a rather large workload, if that's fair to say.
Right. Absolutely. So I am creating the content. That's why the title of creator was given, and it's me on site a lot of times. So I'll probably be with ESPN on site at least once a month at different events. But then also we do a lot of editorial work at Sports-ish. So if you take a scroll during Super Bowl week, you'll see there was a Spotted in the Stands with all of the celebrities at Super Bowl. That was a joint post with ESPN. So it's going to be a lot of collaborative content between all of their platforms, ESPN, ESPNW, ESPN NFL, and Sports-ish.
What do you think it was about this moment in this generation that motivated ESPN and other companies to really look at what you're doing and not just appreciate it? Because, look, if there wasn't growth, this is a business. And if they didn't think they could make some money, if they didn't see growth in your approach, they would not have approached you during this time. What do you think made this relationship viable and motivate them to look at what you've done to understand that there is growth in space where you're at and what you're doing?
Yeah, well, Sports-ish has a 92% female audience between the ages of 18 to 35, and that is just absolutely unheard of in the industry. And a lot of these media mongols have been trying to really capture that specific audience for a long, long time and haven't been successful, truthfully. And so when people hear that stat alone and this increase in female fandom that has come over the past several years, they put 2 and 2 together. You know, I'm obviously speaking to women. They're trying to speak to more women. Women control a lot of the household's wallets across the country and the world. And so, of course, they want to speak to them. They want to create them as legitimate sports fans. And we have done that. We have them captured and following us. And so it just makes sense in their eyes when they want to grow that audience.
As far as the growth of women's sports, I mean, what sort of data points do you have? You know, from and I know you're anti-mainstream media, but your big brother makes a living in mainstream media. So from the standpoint of what we do on a day-to-day basis, I try to track stories that will resonate with audiences. And recently, over the past few years, the stories that have resonated on the female side, the women's side of sports, for me, it's a Caitlin Clark moment, right, where the NCAA ratings were through the roof, and going to visit Andrew and Mary Martha in Carmel, Indiana, and seeing the twins, you know, talking about wanting to go see Caitlin Clark and go see a WNBA game. I mean, she has the appeal that's kind of across the board. And then obviously the Olympics are going on, and there are stories all over the place with female athletes. I've long said the women's soccer team, the women's national team actually wins in a way that the men don't. But what, as far as individual stories or teams or athletes or whatever that sounds like, even if it's Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce, what do you think has led to what feels like just a more magnified attention time frame on women in sports?
Well, I think, Spencer, it's the storylines that we're seeing these women up close. I've always said it's kind of been a very bad cycle within women's sports where people are not watching because they don't know. They don't know who these people are, and that's because, they historically have not been covered. Historically, 9% of sports media coverage went to women's sports, which, of course, means 91% was men's sports. And that's just not a cool statistic for anyone. So when that changed, right, when they were covered and talked about on more mainstream media, and a lot of that, of course, has to do with Caitlin Clark, but there are so many female athletes around the world who have changed this narrative. When they started to get covered and people started to be introduced who they were, then people wanted to watch, and then, of course, the ratings went up. So a historically bad cycle has turned into a now very exciting, profitable cycle across all women's sports leagues. You have Unrivaled, which is this new, they're in their second year, 3-on-3 basketball tournament. The likes of Paige Beckers, she is just dominating in all the leagues she plays in. And then you have, of course, the storyline of the WNBA players wanting to be paid and demanding to be so. Nafisa Collier calling out their commissioner, and it's captivating across. And then you have people in the Olympics who are doing unprecedented things. Lindsey Vonn, of course, terrible crash yesterday, but competing at 41 years old when she previously had retired, she came back and kept chasing her dream. So I think just the lens that we're giving female athletes, people are finally seeing them for who they are and their talent, and that makes them want to tune in.
Remember when you first told me about the idea, I was like, this is actually really smart, because it does feel like there was kind of this area that could be captured. And I don't want to say a niche area, but like women who are married to sports fans, or women who are dating sports fans, or women who really like sports themselves but don't have time to learn about it. And just like I could, talk to someone on a date about the Jazz pick and roll defense, then I wouldn't get a second date, right? Like ultimately, there are things that you capture that I think women gravitate towards, and then they can go use this knowledge with their friends or dating or with their partners. What sort of feedback do you receive about that kind of dynamic, as far as like, hey, this content has helped me understand something that maybe my partner really loves, and now I love it too?
Yeah, I think there's no doubt that what we're doing, which is creating captivating storylines centered around women and for women, kind of more catered to them and their feelings and their likes and dislikes, I think that bridges the gap between them and major sports fans. But I also think, while it's been considered niche for a lot of people, like centering women in sports shouldn't be that way. It shouldn't be niche. It should be how it is. I would like a world where we eventually are referring to women's sports and men's sports as just sports. And we are not like singling women out for being impressive sports fans. They're just sports fans. And so I don't talk down. I don't over explain. I'm not like trying to teach people what a pick six is, because I believe that, once you watch enough sports, you will understand the rules, the X's and O's, but it's getting them to initially want to watch the game. And through storylines, that's how I'm doing that. I'm telling who these people are, their stories, how they were raised, who they're dating. Of course, that's always captivating. And then, of course, you want to cheer for them. And that's what creates sports fans. And that's what I'm trying to do.
Yeah, by niche, I more meant like the way that because again, it was really smart, the way you've decided to approach it, not like niche, like women's sports fans, just like you referenced who they're dating, right? Or what they're.
You're a green flag. Don't worry. But there are.
Wait. Hold on. You have to. What does that mean?
You don't know what that means?
I have zero. Do you know how old I am? I have a birthday next month. It's wild. So before I want you to continue, but tell me what that means sincerely.
Green flag means you are you have positive masculinity, not toxic masculinity.
Nice.
So, I mean, you appreciate and give respect where respect's due. I mean, there's still crazy people in comment sections that every time they see a female athlete, they're like saying something absurd and disrespectful. So, green flag sense, take it. It's a compliment.
Sweet. Okay, now on to your point. What were you going to say?
I was just saying, you're a green flag in that you recognize that this is a space that needed to be filled. But there are a lot of people that are like, oh, wow, that's so niche. That's, so clever to speak to them. And to that, I just say, I think this has been a long time coming. And a lot of women in sports and women sports fans have been waiting to be seen and spoken to authentically. And that was my experience as a woman who loved sports. Is like, yeah, I love sports, but I don't love the way they're being delivered to me. It's like very stat heavy, and I want to know who these people are in order to cheer for them. And so, yeah, that's what we're trying to do.
Just remember what I told you, okay? And I want this on my tombstone. The internet is where cowards go to feel brave, okay? None of those cowards in your comments section are worth your time. You understand that, right?
Yes, and you were the first person to ever give me that advice. And, I really feel bad for anyone who is spending their precious time on this earth putting down other people on social media. They're not critical thinkers, and are not with your time, and their thoughts have been co-opted by bad actors who are paid to deliver propaganda news. Let's move on from that, though. Here's my question. Like, what have you been able to learn? Because I have your feed up, and you can follow Lily on pretty much any social media platform. Just search Sports-ish. That's sports and then ISH. Have you been able to track, like, do you know now when you find a story that's going to resonate, if that makes sense? And then what's your process there? What is that like? I think immediately I know. And I'm lucky because I'm my target demo, right? I'm speaking to people who are a lot like me, women who love sports and ish and pop culture, as we say. But so when I enjoy something, when something speaks to me, that's probably a story that's going to do well. So we're about to put up, the Lindsey Vonn quote that she put out today about continuing to chase her dreams, even though she had this terrible crash yesterday. And yesterday, of course, the Super Bowl. So what do I know about the Super Bowl? I want to know who these players are. I want to know who they're dating. So we did a love stories of the Super Bowl with Seahawks and Patriots players and who they're married to, who they're dating. I want to know about the coaches. Like I have this joke that both two seemingly nice guys named Mike played for the Super Bowl, because that's how I viewed the coaches. I really didn't know anything about their history. I knew that they were both named Mike and they were both seemingly very nice. And so that's like a joke that I ran with, what people were wearing to the Super Bowl. And then, of course, like the rise of Sam Darnold, I think a lot of women appreciate a underdog and a story to success that Sam Darnold was a perfect example of. So those are some of the storylines that I ran with, but I know immediately if it speaks to me, it's going to speak to my audience.
That's a really good point. The fact that you are your niche audience. I as I scroll through your feed and as I've been following kind of this rise over the past couple of years, you've interviewed like A-list people, like top shelf athletes, celebrities. Has there been an interaction that has let you down?
Oh, yes, actually just one, one single one. Athletes have been phenomenal. Flavor Flav.
Oh, okay. There's got to be a story behind this. What happened with Flava Flav?
I don't know. He just didn't like the questions we were asking. We were asking like if he was an introvert or an extrovert, and like, more personal questions. And he had, first of all, the man was 2 hours late to the original set time to the interview. And then he was just like, oh, you know what? F this. I'm not doing this. And walked away.
Oh my gosh.
After being 2 hours late. After I asked him if he was an introvert or an extrovert. But truly, the other athletes have been nothing but phenomenal. I will say Drake May was just an absolute sweetheart. This past week, I asked him to talk about his mom, and he got choked up. He was really, really sincere. I've had really, really good experiences so far, besides the sleep.
Did Flava Flav show up with the clock around his neck?
Of course he did. Please.
How does one wear a clock yet show up 2 hours late is my question.
That clock doesn't work anymore. Sure.
You have a clock around your neck. Give me a couple of interactions that have surprised, like you said, Drake May, but over the last year and a half, 2 years, like you were pleasantly surprised by said interaction.
Well, I think Jackson Dart was very fun because we share this kind of Utah connection, Utah roots. And we sat down before he started for the Giants. It was at something called the Rookie Premiere, and we had this very fun, we called it a sporty speed date, where I just asked him very funny questions. And he was so open and receptive. And then I saw him a few days ago at the Super Bowl during the week, and he came up to me and was like, "Hey, how are you? Totally remember our interview." And I just love that, hearing that from a Utah kid. I was really pleasantly surprised with him. I like interviewing rookies and younger guys because the ego hasn't fully hit yet. But, I think it's always special to me when I get to interview a name like Jason Kelce, Travis Kelce. Those are big names within the female audience, and they were nothing but kind. Kylie Kelce as well. Those three are just absolute professionals, and I'm 1 degree removed from my girl Taylor Swift, so hopefully that's coming.
That's the follow-up, and we're Swifties on this show. We support, okay? We support.
Green flag.
Green flag over here. I can't, Porter, I am a green flag. He is jealous in there. I can see it. But I know that has always been like the dream get, where I would imagine you have tried. I don't even know how you try to do that, but what's that process been like?
Yeah, I haven't reached out to Tree Payne, who's Taylor Swift's rep, ever. I think we're still a few million followers away from maybe having that opportunity. But what I did do this past week is I was at an event that Travis Kelce was at, and with the encouragement of some friends, I did go up to him. We had met previously. I reintroduced myself, and I showed him this article that had come out on Front Office Sports when they announced my deal with ESPN, and how they talked about how much I focused on Taylor Swift and what she did for female sports fans. And I know that garners a lot of eye rolls across the sports landscape, but I really believe that she made other women feel like, oh, I maybe don't know everything about football, but I should tune in. Or like, I love Taylor Swift and she seems to like football, maybe I should tune in. And once she showed up that next week, there were millions of new followers, new eyes, particularly between teenage girls. And that's huge for the NFL. They've been trying to reach that audience. She's estimated to have brought in the league $1 billion. And that's just crazy, crazy stuff. So I said to Travis, please just pass on the message to your fiance. Like, she has changed things for female sports fans. And she technically, showing up to that Chiefs game, changed my company and my brand and our trajectory. So I'm not too far, but I still have a ways to go to interview Taylor Swift.
I will offer to slide into her DMs if you'd like.
Thank you.
Okay.
Well, with a green flag like you, she'll probably respond.
Okay, so I'll have my people reach out to her people. My people are literally Porter. Porter, do me a favor, okay? Find Taylor Swift's reps and say a sports talk radio in Salt Lake who has been identified as a green flag would like a word with her.
Perfect.
I can send it out.
Okay.
I'll put the feelers out.
Any update on Chappelle? We were trying to get Chappelle on. Where were we at there?
Crickets.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. Before I say you lose, I've noticed one of your posts, and I saw this when you sent it out, but I thought it was really good. So I think it was just NFL guys, but you asked them who their favorite female athlete is, their favorite women's in sports. Was there like what was the reaction? Was there one name that kind of permeated, or was it kind of all over the board?
I was pleasantly surprised. So that was at NFL Honors Thursday night. And I was pleasantly surprised with the range I got. I mean, we had people say tennis stars. People, of course, love Serena Williams. But when that's the answer, sometimes I'm like, do you know any other female athletes? Like, could we name a current female athlete? She's the GOAT. But I always love when guys have a pulse on current women's sports and who's awesome. So I got a Paige Beckers, I got a Diana Flores, who's a flag football player, currently one of the best in the world. I got a Naomi Osaka. I really just was impressed when they knew their stuff. They were clearly watching women's sports, and that's what's ironic about some of the hate that women's sports gets online or in comment sections, is that I think a lot of the male athletes who those guys look up to have a lot more respect for women in sports. Steph Curry always rocks the "Everybody Watches Women's Sports" T-shirt. He's a huge advocate for women's sports. Kobe was as well. So I think if they could learn anything from their favorite male athletes, it would be watching women's sports is cool. It's not embarrassing. No WNBA jokes anymore.
Where are you at currently, and what's next for you?
Currently, I'm in New York City. That's where I live with my family. I have 2 kids, as you know. They love Uncle Spence. And what's next is this partnership with ESPN. So there's going to be a lot of NBA coverage, hopefully some Knicks games, return to where our roots are, and some hockey games. We're going to do a lot with hockey over the next few months. And then World Cup time, which I'm really, really excited about.
All right, Liz. Well, your big brother is incredibly proud of you and in awe of what you've done. So you keep going, and you have a home here, okay?
Thank you. Well, I just want to say there was a trailblazer of sports broadcasting in our family, and it's you. So I probably wouldn't be doing this if I hadn't seen that path paved first. So thank you for doing that for me.
Well, that's kind. Love you, okay? I'll see you soon.
Love you. All right, bye.
All right, I'm telling you, I am incredibly proud of this young lady who is my little sister, and I'm sure some people, were mad that we did that because that's not your preferred sports talk radio content. Don't really care. She came to me. She actually has a broadcast degree. I do not. Never studied any of this stuff. Never thought I'd be doing it. And she was frustrated with the inability to, move up and land jobs. And she came to me with this idea a few years ago. And in my mind, I'm like, it sounds like it's an awesome idea because there's definitely a market for it, but how are you going to execute this? And she has, and it's been unbelievable to watch her do this. You remember when we had her on, when she first, it was like a blog and then like an Instagram page, right?
Yeah, it was just the very beginnings of it. And no, it's perfect because I am like the opposite of her target audience, right? I respectfully, I don't care who Josh Allen's dating, even though she was great in one of my favorite flicks. However, there was always that hole. There was always, where I go on a date, girl I'm talking to, no clue what I'm talking about. And there's a connection to be made with sports fans of different interests where clearly she found that, recognized it, and as you said, executed on actually making it into content that's digestible. It's fun, it's creative, and it hits a demographic that I think was really in need of coverage in the sports world.
So, funny story for you. Recently, I was texting with a woman, right, a potential candidate to go out on a date. She did not, but she's like, "Hey, I think you're in because I see that Lily Shimbashi follows you on social media." And I'm like, "That's my little sister," and she didn't believe me. I had to send her a picture of me and Elizabeth, like 4 or 5 years old, for her to actually for like 30 minutes she refused to believe that Lily was actually my sister because she loves sports. I mean, it's like just a really, really cool thing.
I just checked the page and like half of the girls I went to high school with now, that's like 8 people, but follow her, so it's reaching way out into rural Utah, getting folks interested in that other side of sports.
Very proud of her. Just unbelievably proud and in awe, a proud big brother today. All right, Sean Syed from Sumer Sports will join us coming up on the other side. We'll get into the 5 o'clock hour of the program. We'll say goodnight at 6 right here on ESPN 700. Hard to believe it's about 7 months or so until we'll see another football game played on the field. But we've got spring football coming up in the world of college football. We got the NFL draft coming up. If you're an NFL fan, football really never sleeps anymore. But the Seattle Seahawks are your Super Bowl 60 champ. And to help us break it all down is our friend Sean Syed from Sumer Sports. What's up, Sean? How are you, man?
I mean, I'm feeling good. It's been an incredible season. It feels like it's been going on forever, but it was also done in an instant. So I know I'm going to miss football a lot, but I'm glad we got to end on a game that I think there is a lot to talk about from it.
There is, and you're always good to kind of help us understand with some data points and some background what the rest of us simps are just seeing with our eyes. So I think we need to start, Sean, as you know, in this business, you don't want to bury the lead with what Seattle's defense was able to do, not just yesterday, but all year long, man. What stands out the most?
I mean, absolutely unbelievable season. And I'm glad you pointed that out. It's really been the entire year. Like, you look at all these performances game after game after game. And I think that it was awesome because they did it in so many different ways where they could just beat you with their 4 defensive linemen, just mauling your offense over and over. But we saw this in the Super Bowl and saw this at different points this season where Mike Macdonald he is incredible. He has such a knack for defensive play calling. I think he understands exactly how to attack an offense's pass protection. I mean, you see the same exact blitz, kind of dressed up in a few different ways, but run multiple times in the same exact spot. And to me, that shows someone that's not, he's not too proud, right? He doesn't say, oh, well, I need to come up with something extra creative. I'm sure he had a few extra designs to use, but if something's working, he's going to keep on pushing it. So I'm really, really interested to see just, do teams look at this and say, all right, well, we need a killer defensive line and an awesome defensive back. That's a really easy thing to say, but I also just want to continue to see guys like Mike McDonald, guys, of course, like Jesse Minter, kind of off that tree, continuing to spread across the league.
So now let's go to the other side of the ball. And Sean, you've been joining the show for a long time, so you know I'm a Jets fan, and we had Sam there for a minute. And, of course, it didn't look great. Sam was the quarterback at USC. Out here in the Pac-12 footprint, now the Big 12 footprint for the Utes, of course. And just simply the stat that he became the first USC quarterback to start a Super Bowl, not just win one, but start one, is really unbelievable to me. But if you look at the Sam Darnold redemption arc, Sean, what stands out the most to you?
Football immortality. Like, it doesn't matter what anyone says about him anymore. This guy is etched into history forever. And I think that is so, so cool. Just looking at the way that you spend some time in San Francisco, and I think you're really nurtured in that environment. You see football a little bit of a different way. You go to Minnesota, you're playing with a coach who is seen as quite quarterback friendly, kind of running that similar system as San Francisco. And now you get to Seattle where, again, you're running a really quarterback friendly system in a lot of ways. So it's awesome to see because I think you give other players maybe hope that you're able to get out of some of your early career situations. I'm sure, teams across the league would love to build their teams around some of these quarterbacks that you don't have to pay top dollar. So it feels like incredibly happy for Sam Darnold, but also kind of seems like maybe some of these kind of mid-level quarterbacks may also get paid around the league.
All right. On the other side of things, look, I don't, and again, as a Jets fan, anybody but the Patriots, but I don't feel like the Patriots were the best team out of the AFC, but they won what they need. They won the games they needed to win. It's interesting, Sean. We've had a bunch of, experts and analysts on over the past couple of weeks to break it down. Several people pointed to the Patriots' offensive line as a little bit of an Achilles heel. Drake May has taken a lot of heat today, and I thought the young man handled himself post-game just brilliantly, and I think they've got a bright future for him. But from a macro viewpoint, winning 4 games a year ago, and then Mike Vrabel brings them to the precipice of winning another Super Bowl, what stands out the most?
Yeah, it's an incredible turnaround in a really quick time where it feels like a bunch of those players, like we got Craig Woodson, a later round draft pick, playing important snaps in the Super Bowl and making an impact. So you like that Vrabel gets in there, you turn the program around, you have Drake May able to kind of lift up the levels in different ways, where Josh McDaniels, I don't think he had his best performance in the Super Bowl as a play caller, but I think throughout the season was able to kind of smooth things out. And I don't want to take the negative side of this, but you immediately think like, oh man, it's going to be a really hard road back. The AFC is really, really rough to get through. You got to this point, how quick are you going to be able to get back? You just don't know, because we talked about Joe Burrow like years and years ago. It feels like now we're, you overachieve, you got there, you're going to be back. There's just no guarantee. There's absolutely no guarantee. So that almost makes it hurt a little bit more when you're not able to kind of finish the job when you get there. But still, it feels like, the Patriots did such a good job this season of really overachieving kind of in every level. And I think it's Zach Ertz, a defensive coordinator. I was happy with his performance in the Super Bowl in a lot of ways. I think some of the pressures that they had early on were really good. The Seahawks had one of their lower success rates of the entire season. So it's an unfortunate one to leave on that bitter note. And I'm really curious, when and how are these guys going to be able to try and get back?
This stuff is so hard to predict. It's why I tell my listeners every day, do not gamble. Do not bet on the stuff. I know you have access to it and you're inundated with it all the time, but it's like the last bastion of what is actually reality television, where humans are, performing something that is impossible to really predict. But guys like you do a good job with it. Here's my question. Leading up to the game, tell me, just generally speaking, what you were expecting from both teams, and then after watching the game, the things that happened that caught you off guard.
Yeah, I said it in the microphones last week. I felt pretty comfortable that the Seahawks would win this game. I did think that the Patriots were going to keep it a little bit tighter. I thought it was, pretty clear from just like looking at film of these teams, looking at the data of these teams, that this was going to be a defensive struggle. And it really, really was. And it feels like that the Patriots were able to the Seahawks were able to kick enough field goals early on. You're not playing conservative, but you just don't have to kind of overextend as a team overall. So it felt like the left side of the Patriots offensive line was in a little bit of a tough spot, which really showed up. It felt like that center right guard spot was in a tough spot for the Seahawks. That really, really showed up. So it felt like all the things kind of came true. Even we were expecting Sam Darnold to maybe return to kind of more of an average level of play. I was just hoping, that Drake May would play at a high enough level to be able to kind of raise things up for the Patriots offense. Now we're getting reports of really bad, or a shoulder injury that he had a shot in before the game, which I know that he's not going to make an excuse about that, but you can see some of those missed throws early in the game. So I think the one thing that really felt off was, May was not at the level that you would hope to play, but the Seahawks defense, that is an all-time performance, really up there with the Eagles defense of last season as well.
All right, I was looking at some stuff as far as what's in store potentially for these teams. And look, Sean, as you know, they've got Darnold under contract for 2 more years, and it's pretty team-friendly. I read that they're going to have the 6th most cap space in the NFL, and Mike McDonald's 38 years old. So when it comes to what they have in store to make sure this was not necessarily just a one-year rise-up situation and make it sustainable, is it kind of stay the course? Do you think they have some decisions to make? Because it feels like if you're a Seattle fan, you might be in store for a good run from your team that might have something to say about it for a few years now.
Yeah, I'm curious just to see how they continue to build along the offensive line. They're, of course, going to have a new offensive play caller with Clint Kubiak heading over to the Raiders. So that's going to be a transition. Are you able to kind of continue things the same way you had with Darnold? And I do think early in the season, the run game wasn't as clean as it ended up being. Kenneth Walker, of course, Super Bowl MVP, played quite well towards that backstretch of the playoffs. So I want to see, are you adding another receiver with his Cooper Kupp maybe going to retire? I believe Shaheed is a free agent. You, of course, have strong tight ends. You can build everything around JSN, but there are some things that have to be transitioned now, where you should be, I think, the favorite maybe in that division, because your defense is absurd. You're not going to lose a ton of parts. You're probably going to just keep adding to that, if anything. I want to see, though, what is the growth along the offensive line, and then, of course, who is going to ultimately be the offensive play caller. We're probably going to go with an internal promotion. That would make sense, but things might look and feel a little bit different.
On the other side, again, when you have a quarterback that's that young and a coach that appears to be absolutely the right hire and is going to be around for the long haul, are we in for a situation where the New England Patriots might have something to say about not just the conference but the Super Bowl for a little while? What do you think about that?
I think they're gonna have to improve. They're definitely gonna have to take some steps forward. Of course, they just ended up as the AFC champion, so I don't want to take that away from them. But center, left guard, left tackle, those are live questions around them. I think you could tell towards, or particularly in the Super Bowl, you don't have that kind of star number one wide receiver. I think that was a little bit of a rough one, because the way the Seahawks play, they're going to leave some of those outside cornerbacks on islands at times, not all the time, but enough that you could maybe take a shot. And then you don't really see it until Mace throwing the ball up to Mac Hollins kind of late in that game, almost after everything's over. So I do want to see that improvement along the offensive line and really at that wide receiver position. You hope that May is able to continue to grow. I think having a good wide receiver there with him is going to be a big deal.
All right, tell me who we'll go conference by conference here, because I referenced I do not believe the Patriots are the best team out of the AFC. I think, a healthy Bo Nix changes things. I'm going to remain bullish on Josh Allen, because why wouldn't you? I know there's a coaching change. And you can take a couple stabs at this. You can give me 2 or 3 teams. But next year, Sean, in the AFC, the contenders are who and why?
I mean, I can't stop thinking about the Kansas City Chiefs. They're going to have a nice draft pick. They still have Patrick Mahomes, of course, hopefully able to come back healthy. My mind first leans to the Bills, though. I feel like Josh Allen is just at such an incredible level. I think you can easily say the Ravens. I think Jesse Minter was the best hire of the cycle, but you're still going to be bringing a new offensive coordinator there. I mean, you're hoping that Lamar Jackson is able to be there and you're able to stabilize things with that defensive head coach, able to kind of lift the level there. I think the Broncos are absolutely a decent argument. I think the Jaguars are a team where you could see, are you taking that huge leap forward now, kind of even up higher from 13 wins? Of course, you have 13 wins during the regular season, but need to take that step then in the playoffs. So I think at this point, before I really start thinking about my offseason stuff, it feels like the Bills. I'm curious what the team is going to look and feel like, where you're turning your offensive coordinator into your head coach. You're hoping that the offense is able to continue, but now on the defensive side of the ball, I think going to have to get things straightened out, where they were quite good in a lot of advanced metrics last season. But unfortunately, I think even in the big games, I thought they actually did play kind of well. So it just feels like the Bills continue to run this just rough shot of luck. So I'm looking towards the Buffalo Bills a little bit right now.
Yeah, I felt this way about Aaron Rodgers for years. When he was kind of top shelf Aaron Rodgers, I'm like, dude, that guy is too good to just win one. And Josh just feels like a generational talent that at some point the time will come for him to step up and rightfully take his place. But we are in Salt Lake City, Sean. As you know, we don't have an NFL team, but we have a lot of Broncos fans. So I think for the first time in a long, long time, and I certainly felt bad for the fan base because they lose their quarterback when they're on the precipice of getting back. And then, of course, the conditions were so chaotic. Josh McDaniels called the play to have Drake May roll out to the left and literally throw the football out of bounds. But the future in Denver, Sean, looks like what?
I think you can feel pretty good about it because the offensive line, it is so well built. The defense is strong and it is together. Now, it is hard to repeat just top-end defensive performances year after year like, the Broncos kind of have now, but you still have Vance Joseph there. I think Sean Payton continuing to grow with Bo Nix, where whatever you think about Bo Nix, I mean, he did show some strong things in the playoffs, and it seems like his injury, he should be able to recover from that. So I'm curious, what do the Broncos do at the pass catcher level? Are they, do they have to bring in another running back after obviously spending some capital on a running back this offseason? I think you can feel pretty decent about it, but at the same time, in that division. Now, do I think the Raiders are going to quickly turn around to be a playoff team? That might be a little bit of a stretch at this point, but the Chiefs are going to be there. The Chargers are now going to have Mike McDaniel calling plays. I think that will be exciting. So I could definitely see the Broncos winning the division next year. I think it's just going to be a really interesting, tough task.
Since you referenced the Raiders, by proximity, they're now the closest team to us being in Vegas. I think the Mendoza kid's good. I do. I was very skeptical early on. Of course, new quarterback, new coach, and it's been a long time since the Raiders have been relevant. What do you think next year looks like in Vegas?
Yeah, I think the only thing that matters is how are you able to kind of connect the offensive play caller and the quarterback? And is it something where Mendoza sits for a little bit? I think they still have Geno Smith under contract. Or are they just going to, kind of slow pedal Mendoza through? I think it's going to be tough for Clint Kubiak to do that. There's really going to be so many calls to get, hey, this is going to be your first overall pick. Let's get him on the field as quick as possible. But I'm curious, just does the offense, is it a bombs away type offense, the way that Sam Darnold had, throwing up the ball up to JSN? I'm really excited to see Ashton Genty in that kind of outside zone type offense where the ball can kind of go wherever it needs to go, no matter what the defense is doing. And if you're Brock Bowers, I mean, you got to be pretty psyched. I think seeing how tight ends work in Clint Kubiak's offense, that should be a whole lot of fun. But even before that, it feels like Max Crosby is kind of on the way out in Las Vegas. And now it makes me think, okay, well, if if this was kind of a realistic conclusion, an unfortunate conclusion to this situation. Now it makes me think, oh, well, should you maybe have kind of dealt Crosby earlier? I would love to see him, play for the Raiders, but it kind of seems like kind of reading some of the reports that some of the signs are that he's probably on the way out.
Well, if that's the deal, and it's always tough when the news is leaked because it kind of kills your bargaining ability when you enter negotiations. But is there a world out there that they can get a bunch of different, draft options if they move on from him to kind of just say, okay, we're going to go all in on being bad and we're going to stockpile picks and try to build around this young quarterback? Is that a viable option for the Raiders?
I mean, you have to at least try to make that trade where, it's not, I think, like the fairest comparison, but you start at the Micah Parsons trade, 2 first-round picks and a player. Like that's where you start. I would be quite surprised if a team ends up going that high on the price. Maybe you're able to squeak out a first-round pick and something else. I think that just considering kind of contract and everything else going on there. So I think you can at least get some capital, and I guess that is better than nothing. And it's just unfortunate where you have teams like the Raiders with Crosby. I mean, kind of the Browns with Myles Garrett, who obviously signed a massive, massive deal with them, but you have to face this unfortunate decision of we have a star player that you can build a team around. You really can, but if that person's time horizon is a little bit different than kind of where your team is headed, it just stinks, right? Because you never want to trade away a good player. But then you see a team like the Seahawks roster, and it's like, oh, man, all these players were kind of acquired recently through the draft. You're able to hit on some of those big guys or, sign one important one in free agency. So then maybe you can start turning your head towards, all right, we are building around Fernando Mendoza. We're building around Bowers, building around Genty. We can use some of these picks now to create some space on these cost control contracts to hopefully be effective in the near future.
Before we get over to the NFC, let me ask you about the Steelers, who decided to go with Mike McCarthy. And, that hire was kind of met with a lot of eye rolls. He's a Pittsburgh guy. He's won a Super Bowl. But your thoughts on the hire, and then what do they do under center?
So for the Steelers, it felt like they moved on from Mike Tomlin because they were maybe a little bit tired of okay, we're like kind of on the brink of the playoffs. We're just getting in. We're in that kind of 9-10 range. We're trying to hit a home run, or maybe just trying to reset things overall. It feels like Mike McCarthy kind of is in that kind of mold. At the same time, McCarthy, of course, he's won a Super Bowl. He is an extremely competent coach. I think you should feel decent about that. So I think I'm not on low as Mike McCarthy himself as a candidate for this kind of job. I guess maybe I just don't see the vision yet, because it sounds like now you're going to have Aaron Rodgers come back for another year. I think I would have liked, selfishly to say, all right, let's press the reset button. Let's go super, super young. Let's go offensive minded. Let's, take some time here to kind of reset things in a different way. I think sometimes it's tough to do that when you have a lot of different pieces on defense that are really, really ready to win now. I think maybe, I could see them winning 9 games. It just feels like, all right, well, we're kind of playing the same song and dance now for the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Over the NFC, where Seattle, as we already outlined, of course, is your current Super Bowl champ and appear to be in a spot where if they make some good moves, they'll be relevant for a long time. Matt Stafford wins the MVP. He comes back for the Rams. And, that division, if San Fran can ever get some health luck, a lot of Niner fans in the market, I feel like they're going to be right there as well. Jordan Love played his college ball at Utah State. We'll see if Green Bay can do a little bit better with better health. But generally speaking, you can give me 2, 3, 4 teams, whatever you want, Sean. NFC next year looks like what?
I'm really curious just what happens with the Philadelphia Eagles, where you bring in Sean Mannion, and based on all the other hires, things like the offensive line coach, it really feels like they're saying we are taking an entirely different approach to football. We are going to be this more Kyle Shanahan, this Mike Shanahan, this Sean McVay type of offense that Mannion is really, really well versed in. We're going to be running this kind of outside zone as opposed to some of those vertical attacking at you type runs that the Eagles have run in the past. And it's going to be just a huge, I think, learning opportunity for us to watch Jalen Hurts potentially be in an offense that prioritizes attacking the middle of the field. Like, the Packers are one of my favorite offenses to watch every single season. They do a lot of fun stuff. I got to see Mannion at the Shrine Bowl, and it felt like, all right, well, he's probably going to want to install a lot of that kind of Packers type mentality. So the Eagles are a team that It feels like they absolutely will have the ability to win the Super Bowl. But if things don't click, it feels like it might just be a situation that craters out. And for the Rams are a team where I want to say that they're the team that I would maybe pick just on day one. You never know how long Matt Stafford has. I'm very excited that he's going to play for another year. You're hopefully able to stay healthy there. I think you got to improve a little bit on the defensive side of the ball. So it feels like the same old players. When you have guys like the Rams and the Eagles, the Packers are going to be one as well, where it feels like, all right, you have an explosive offense where that is the most important thing in the NFL, despite these incredible defenses continuing to win these important Super Bowls. I'm interested to see, is that defensive side of the ball in Green Bay able to stabilize things a little bit, particularly when you might be missing Micah Parsons, or he's just kind of coming right off that injury.
Let me ask you about the Niners, and this might be my bias because, as the Steve Young factor out here has led a lot of people to love the Niners for a long time. And I think Shanahan, it's not a hot take. I just think he's a brilliant, brilliant mind. And it feels like every year they just have this health situation that they can't overcome. But if we assume that maybe Lady Luck actually shines on them, and we're assuming, no team is fully healthy, what do you think next year will look like for them, and what sort of avenues and routes do they have for talent acquisition this offseason?
Yeah, Shanahan is certainly, one of the guys that I always study in the offseason because he is constantly iterating. He is always a little bit ahead of the curve. He is working in different ways, and I understand if Niners fans are a little bit upset by, some of the playoff performances there. But, you lose Warner, you lose Bosa. Trent Williams has some injuries kind of towards that game late in the season. Like, it is hard to live around those kinds of things. So I'm curious just how healthy everyone comes back. Even Kittle was hurt, right? And he was hurt late in the season. So I would love for all those guys to come back healthy. Part of me is feeling like, all right, well, McCaffrey was a running back and a real wide receiver this year with incredible efficiency from that running back spot. Is it the kind of like last version of this where, hey, now we have to move into a different direction? I really want to be able to see Ricky Pearsall be able to continue to grow. I believe, I'm not 100% sure. I think Juwan Jennings might be a free agent there. You do have to build a bunch of different things on the defensive side of the ball, but you still are hoping that you have anchors around Bosa and Warner there. So I'm not going to write off the 49ers just because Kyle Shanahan has put together highly efficient offenses. Seems like no matter what, the schedule, of course, will be a little bit different. And they're, of course, playing in a really just the NFC West, as you mentioned. It is a rough place to live. And we're talking about the AFC West. That's not exactly where you want to live. The NFC West really is something else. So, I still think of the 49ers as a team that should be able to contend. I think Purdy has shown growth in multiple different ways as a real solid quarterback in this league. I'd be curious as how much of their draft is devoted to, is it maybe the offensive line? Is it maybe getting a Trent Williams replacement? Or is it saying we need to continue to be able to build on this defensive line?
I guess stranger things have happened because we just saw a team that won 4 games a year ago compete for a Super Bowl. Jackson Dart played his high school ball out this way, and I'm a Northeast boy with several Giants fans in my ecosystem. Year 1 for the Giants under John Harbaugh. Sean, what do you think it looks like?
I think when John Harbaugh ended up with the Giants, people were excited. You think, all right, well, Todd Monken is going to be able to come in and run an offense that Jackson Dart should be able to be comfortable with. Now you end up with Matt Nagy as the offensive coordinator there, who, he probably, it seems like Andy Reid kind of shoved him to the side, right? Andy Reid, I imagine, had the ability to re-sign him, but ends up going with Eric Bieniemy there instead. I do think Dart, showed some interesting traits overall in limited sample. Of course, he is going to have to play a little bit of a different style just to stay healthy. You're hoping that Malik Neighbors is able to come back there. You have the component parts of a successful team in New York. You absolutely do, which makes it more interesting to me because there are definitely teams across the league where you look at the roster and you have to squint really, really hard. But you can see it with the Giants. You can see the division and say, all right, well, if the Eagles don't work out with Sean Mannion as offensive coordinator, maybe they fall off. The Cowboys, I think, are a really interesting team, but the Commanders, now they're kind of floating and trying to figure out a few different things as well. So I think you want to be hopeful for the Giants, but the most important thing is just going to be what is the connection between Matt Nagy and Jackson Dart? Are you running these concepts that he's really comfortable with? Does the offense have to kind of change shape? And, of course, are you going to be able to stay healthy at the quarterback position?
All right, bud, before I say you loose, it is the off season, but football never sleeps. Tell us where we can find your work and what the plans are when the games aren't being played.
I'm on Twitter at ScienceGames, continuing to break down a ton of stuff. You can actually look at the Sumer Sports draft guide on sumersports.com. So I haven't dug too far into draft stuff yet. I'll start looking at players posting stuff there, but we have all of this information about really all the prospects that are going to go in that early part of the draft. I'm pretty excited for this upcoming season.
Thanks, buddy. Appreciate the time. Be good. We'll chat soon.
Thanks so much. Appreciate it.
All right, Sean Syed, Sumer Sports. Buckle up, kids. Moment that you've all been waiting for. Stained. Yep, that's right. Calm down, okay? I know. Stained is coming to the Utah First Credit Union Amphitheater on October the 7th with Seether. What? Stop. Wait. We got, hold on. I didn't review this read before I'm doing. We've got Stained, Seether, Hoobastank, and Hinder.
All 4 of them.
Everyone calm down and tune into the OC show at 12:10 for your chance to score a pair of tickets. More details at ESPN700sports.com.
Stank.
Let me repeat this lineup. I mean, this has alternate halftime show written all over it. Stained, Seether, Hoobastank, and Hinder. I'm going to send a lucky listener 2 tickets. Sean Show, 12:10 for your chance to win. More details at ESPN700sports.com. My goodness, I love America. All right, we'll catch a break. Final hour of the show is next on ESPN 700. All right, what's going on? Drive time. Drive at 5 time, Monday afternoon style. Happy Monday to you. A little Super Bowl reaction Monday on the program today. Hope you had a great weekend, a good Super Bowl Sunday, or at least an enjoying day, which was an otherwise rather unwatchable game, but your Seattle Seahawks, if you're a Seahawks fan, they are your Super Bowl 60 champ. We've kind of been breaking that down all day long today on the program. We will not see any football games for about 7 months, but we're high speed ahead to the NFL draft, of course. And then on the college football ecosystem side of things, spring ball will be here before you know it. Utah Jazz in action tonight. We'll see what happens. Miami Heat tip off in about 22 minutes. We saw Jaren Jackson Jr. look really, really good in his debut, and then he was told that his ankle didn't look right. Then they sat him for the fourth quarter. His ankle's fine. Lowry is fine, too. He didn't play in the fourth quarter either. But we know what the Jazz are doing. It's really no secret to anybody, but there is some Jazz basketball on the program tonight. Kind of a light night with the local stuff. The Utah Mammoth are off until, I think, February the 25th. It is the Olympic break for the Mammoth. But they did win their final 2 games heading into the break, and they are leading the wild card standing as of now. So we might have some Stanley Cup playoff hockey in our market. They should get Logan Cooley back when they resume. Good one in the Eastern Conference tonight, the Pistons and the Hornets. Hornets, I think, have won 8 straight games. Detroit's awesome. I actually watched them over the weekend against the Knicks. They dismantled them. So some good NBA basketball tonight. The Cavs are in Denver to take on the Nuggets. A little Thunder Lakers later on from Crypto.com Arena. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is hurt. I think Luka Doncic is out as well. So some good NBA basketball, some good college basketball this evening. Big 12 matchup coming up. We're going to have Kansas taking on Arizona. I referenced over the weekend, I was down in Provo watching BYU play Houston. I do think Arizona is the best team in the country. Houston's right there, though, and Kansas, of course. We'll see if Darren Peterson not just plays, but plays more than a few minutes. Should be a good one there in Lawrence at, of course, Fog Allen Fieldhouse. The Utes will take on the aforementioned Houston Cougars tomorrow. Going to be a tough matchup for them. BYU will be back in action. They're trying to get back to their winning ways against Baylor. They're going to retire Jimmer Fredette's number next week, I think, against Colorado. So got Utah-Houston tomorrow. The Utah women are back at it against Arizona State on Wednesday. Utah State, the class in the Mountain West Conference, back in action tomorrow against Fresno. So college basketball kind of this time of year. But, of course, today has been a lot about the Super Bowl and the future in the world of pro football. Some good stuff today from Robert Turbin, from Lily Shimbashi, Sean Syed as well. Before we catch a break, new client on the show, all right? Shout out to my friends at Wasatch Medical Spa. My friend Shelly was live in studio last week. She joined us over the phone earlier today. So it's a brand new technology that Shelly and her staff at Wasatch Medical Spa have brought to the market. Clinically proven, trusted in women's intimate wellness for over 10 years. They've now been able to adopt it for men. Again, first and only spot in Utah where you can get this. It's non-surgical, drug-free treatment, no pills, no injections, no downtime. And they're treating men's sexual wellness on the scope of just wanting to improve the experience all the way to erectile dysfunction. They're offering you a great deal on the show. If you go to wasatchmedicalspa.com, wasatchmedicalspa.com, first of all, if you tell them you heard me talking about it, you get a free consultation. But here's the kicker. They're giving you 50% off your first treatment. You're going to save hundreds and hundreds of dollars, and you might as well take the free consultation and see if you qualify for this. So go to wasatchmedicalspa.com right now. That's wasatchmedicalspa.com, Wasatch Medical Spa. Or if you prefer, you can expedite the process by calling them at 385-333-6000. That's 385-333-6000, 385-333-6000. Our good friends at Wasatch Medical And once said, ba with the ba, da bang, diggy, diggy. Diggy said the boogie, said up, jump the boogie. I mean, it's brilliant.
You got that down.
I have nothing left to add outside of freedom just rules.
Yeah, you've got that down pat.
Kid Rock,
that
man.
lyric.
I mean, talk about just discovering a way to stay relevant based off of nothing that's real. I mean, it's not like he believes in anything. What an odd occurrence over the weekend that folks were actually. And by the way, when did you actually care about the halftime show?
It's become a weird, yearly, annual tradition to argue over who is at the halftime show, and it's last year was more about the Drake Kendrick beef than anything.
That's right, yeah.
But there's always a weird cultural tie that I'm just whatever.
Yeah,
do your thing. I guess.
I saw somebody send out because Drake may obviously struggle. Like Drake hasn't had this bad of a Super Bowl since literally last year.
True,
so that's
true.
Pretty funny. But yeah, I mean, to waste your time on this, like I've never cared about the halftime show. I just want to see a good game, and unfortunately, we didn't get one. Porter, are you familiar with the Olympic event called the doubles luge?
It's just two people luging, right?
It's
two lugers.
Yes, two luge. Nice. Look at you. So they had some highlights on earlier, and they sent out a little graphic where the 6 teams that were doing the doubles luge earlier, 4 of them are married, and 2 of them are siblings. So, I mean, look, if you're going, I think if your wife comes home and says, I want to take up a hobby, I want to do doubles luge, you probably should discourage that. Because I think if you're going to be in that compromised position, having some sort of relationship is probably helpful.
That's fair.
Yeah.
That's fair. They just lay on top of each other, right?
Yeah. And I mean, it's no surprise. So if your wife comes home and says she wants to take jujitsu lessons like Brady's wife did, like Giselle, maybe discourage that hobby as well.
I actually disagree.
Well, I mean, if you want to stay married.
Any self-defense course, I'm in support of.
Well, maybe some stand-up boxing, but like grappling or jiu-jitsu, because those are compromised positions as well.
I got a little jiu-jitsu experience, so if you need lessons, just hit me up.
Are you familiar with the term green flag? I learned about that today.
Kind of. It's a young, I mean, stoplights, racing, NASCAR, they do the green flags, the yellow flag, the checkered flag. I think I get the sentiment. But yeah, I guess more a pop culture reference with our girl Lil.
Yeah, I mean, I was bestowed upon the label green flag was bestowed upon me today.
Put that on your profile.
I'm going to. Positive masculinity, not toxic masculinity.
There you go.
So that's a good thing. All right, Alex Jensen Coach's Show coming up on the other side. We'll catch a quick break and then bring you the voice of the Utes, Bill Riley and Alex Jensen. Been a tough one. Hopefully they can find some success. They take on a really good team. I saw them up close on Saturday. Houston coming up tomorrow. So stay tuned for that. Porter, what comes our way on a Tuesday edition of the show?
Tuesday edition of the show, talking some NBA with Tom Haberstroh, our guy Max Brown, recapping the Super Bowl. Of course, a Seattle native. Dave Fox stops by the program, and I think we'll chat with the voice of the Utes, one Bill Riley.
There you go. I'll leave you with this. The Northern Lights and the Southern Comfort. And it don't even matter if your veins are punctured. All the crackheads, the critics, the cynics, and all my heroes at the methadone clinics. Have a great Tuesday night. The Alex Jensen Coaches Show coming up next. We'll talk to you tomorrow right here on ESPN 700.